7:00, New York. CrossFire, guys, honestly, very excited. Let me just give you guys a little behind the scenes. First of all, thank you to the great Jimmy Harrison right there with the super chat's working. It's a miracle. Thank you, God. Jimmy, the best damn show. Let's go. Jim, thanks so much for being here. I see the great J-Dub here. I said hello to so many of you others that were here earlier. I just was doing the Wise Old Gamers podcast, and I came right over, and I've got a star-studded lineup what you got for you guys. Like, look at this panel. I mean, just look at this panel. Will you? I'm in awe. I hope they can all stay as long as they possibly can. I'm going to try and mooch their time. But I just want to say thanks to every single person that's here. Guys, please hit that like button. Please consider hitting that subscribe button. Your name comes up in lights. Look at that fantastic description down there. Right above that's the join button. I'm going to go very quickly because I only have some of these guys for so long. And honestly, I didn't even do an audio check. So if you guys in the audience could just give me a thumbs up, let me know, Mooch, how the audio is. Say, Mooch, I hear you loud and clear. I didn't get a chance to do it. The great Domino Zero says, got to raise. Take some money, Mooch. I need it. I don't think I'm going to get my Starfield review code. So guess what? I'm going to have to buy that $100 episode on Steam. Somebody's got a Steam code. Let Mooch know. Mooching ain't easy. All right, that being said, I just want to say real quick that I really appreciate everyone that's helped this channel. All the members, the Mooch Maniac family members, you guys are all here week in and week out. I speak to you behind the scenes. I game with you guys. You guys mean the world to me. Let me just read these guys' names out one by one, and then we're going to get this amazing panel. The great Sir X-Man, JudaZuk, WoolleyGamer, Momo Ranting Gaming, Tyson Webb 509, True Witty, Alfonso Carter, who may be joining us soon, Jamie, Damien, the great Jimmy Harrison, who you know is here, Andy Hart, Red Hood 420, Ham Solo 05, Rob Jones, Night Ripper 7, Toto Dope, Thumbs, JC 2013, Passive Prophet, Lord Metroid, Rabbit Got the Gun, Fastbender, Archwar Angel, Biggity 08, Sonyverse, Slow-Mo Backslap, who'll be joining us in a few weeks. The great Major Mooch Maniacs, Capone 5150. Capone, join the channel permanently. B-Mo, careful. I love that name. Leah, 52-year-old gamer. X Abbott, Corey Massey, Truth Serum, Astro Cyborg, RPG88, Julian Johnson. Shout out to Julian. Me and him got a little Texas Chainsaw Massacre gaming in last week. That was fun. Your boy Roy, Scolari Brothers, Smokes 901, DC Gaming, Miko, Gaming with Persona, and Jay Barry, who are back tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern Time for What's Up PlayStation. That's how I start my Saturdays, and I encourage you guys to do the same. Tactical Gamer, Danelle Brown, That Guy Smitty, Brian B, a.k.a. Delirium Blades, and our VIP Mooch Maniacs, General Thad Ape, Silent Merc, Raji, Domino Zero, Shadow Assassin, The Wise Old Gamer, and our honorable mentions are out there without food, water, or toilet. Come home. Supreme Samurai, Dad of War, 4-Star General, Button Basher Podcast, and Dex Flex, and our forever Mooch Maniacs, the great Longshot 316, and the great Optimus Code. That being said, guys, please, again, hit that like button, tweet it out, let everybody know we are talking Starfield. That being said, I'll go right to my special guest. It's been so long since he's been on the show. And I said to him just before, I said, D, did you get a chance to play? He goes, Mooch, I've literally scratched the surface, but I got to be honest with you. His scratching the surface, I haven't gotten to that scratch yet. The great D Batch is with us. D, always great to have you on the show, buddy. I love your hot takes in gaming. I love your opinions. How you doing this evening?
I'm good, man. I see everybody's got this Starfield hype, and
yes,
I would say for the most part, the hype is real. You know, I see the scores that are out there, and I think it's got a great score. Might not be the 92 that a lot of people were hoping for, but I think it's sitting like at 88 or 89 or something, which is a really high score still. So
yes.
Yeah, it's a good game. I'm just scratching the surface. Like, to truth be told, like, I'm doing a lot of setting up the benchmarks and stuff. Wanting to get that stuff out the way, and then, you know, I'll be honest with you, tonight I was going to go into a live stream and really get into it. So after your show, that's what I'm probably going to do. I'm going to just go on a live stream and just play it for, like, 4 or 5 hours tonight.
Oh, D, I love what you're saying there. There you go, audience. You got it right into, and I got to be honest with you, D, I'm going to probably be hitting you up in the DMs afterwards. I'm going to ask you for a 2080 Ti. You don't have to discuss it right now. When you get your benchmarks, let me know. Let me know what settings I can do with a 2080 Ti. Because I'm probably going to be limited in some aspects, but nonetheless, we'll talk about that after the show. D, great to have you here. The Great Basement Radio Arcade Podcast, Brap, honestly, it's an honor to have you here tonight. I know you're a usual panel member, but you had some great family things to attend, and you still managed to be here for the great Starfield episode. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing great, Mooch. Happy to be here. Looking forward to discussing Starfield.
Absolutely, that's what we're here to do tonight, buddy. And what a panel we got for you guys today. We got all sorts of opinions, which is going to make this show so great. Speaking of that, DC, the great Dreamcast guy, is back on the show. DC, honestly, we're separated by an hour in time zones, but nonetheless, love your enthusiasm in gaming. Love the commitment to your channel. Love how much you enjoy this pastime that we all take so dearly into our hearts. DC, welcome back to CrossFire. How you doing tonight?
Happy to be here. It's cool that Starfield is among us. It's crazy that after 10 years of rumors about this game and even 5 years of teases and trailers and logo reveals, we're finally playing it. And even though I'm not the biggest fan of it, it's cool that it's finally out. And I'm happy to be the wet blanket. I'm glad everybody else is enjoying it more than I am.
All right, well, buddy, honestly, but that's okay. That's what makes Crossfire. We can't have everybody just sitting here agreeing with each other. So DC, I can't wait to hear your opinions on this. And then, listen, this is somebody that I follow. And when you talk about gaming and commitment and just an all-around outstanding individual in the community, the great Abantis is with us tonight. Abantis, it was an honor to be able to hang out with you and Lord Cognito and Travis, the Thai guy. Travis was just on the show. He came on Crossfire when we did the big Diablo 4 reveal, and he was the one that reviewed it for IGN. So it was great to have Travis here. But Abantis, you are so dedicated and thorough on your channel and how you go through, especially in Destiny. But you're doing that same thing with. I can't remember the exact number now. I watched the video. It was something like 25 things I would have liked to have known or early on things in Starfield. And I said, I got to get this guy on the show tonight. And I know it's last minute, but Abantis, it's an honor to have you back on the show. How you doing this evening?
Doing good, man. Thank you for the late notice. Yeah, I'm pretty close to 100 hours in it right now. So I got a chance to review it, and it sounds like I've got a little more time in it. There's certain things I obviously can't discuss, but...
Right.
We're here to talk about it.
We can't talk about the new game plus stuff. We're not going to do that and reveal anything. I know that I've watched enough of the reviews to know that we're not going to talk about that. But this is what's amazing. And then last but certainly not least, Gamer's Gamut, who's also been playing the game. And I don't want to put in hours on how much he's been into it, but he was looking forward to the game. I know he's playing it. So we've got early on folks on the panel. We've got folks that have been playing it for probably 5 to 10 hours. We've got 10 to 25 hours, and then well over 100. But Gamut, how are you doing this evening? And thanks for also joining us on this great show. It's going to be.
Yeah, I'm doing great, Mooch. I appreciate the invite. I'm looking forward to hearing the range of opinions on this tonight. Should be a very interesting show.
Absolutely.
And I'm about eight or 9 hours in right now.
That's what I figured. I said 10 hours. I was going to say 10, but I want to stamp a label on it. But nonetheless, so you know what we're going to do? I want to start with some certain things before we get into just opinions on the game. I want to talk a little bit about, what this game means to you guys as a whole, how this affects Xbox and Microsoft moving forward. And remember, guys, it is Crossfire, so if you ever want to chime in, just chime in. But I'm going to start with Abantis. Abantis, when you think about Starfield, is this the killer exclusive app that Xbox has needed? Did it hit the mark? And after everything that you've read, because I know you're well-versed, you talk to a lot of people in the industry. After everything you've heard, experienced, played, and your own review, where are you right now on this game and how it stands for Xbox?
Do you want my review and just kind of thoughts on where it lands for just gaming for the year kind of thing?
Absolutely. And then what does this do for the Xbox brand? I mean, they've gone quite some time without something this large.
I guess I can start there. Even I might see myself as more of a PC gamer, and then I have a PlayStation for a lot of the exclusives. But when it comes to this one, I do think it will be a very memorable game for Xbox. I think it is something that the platform is going to get a nice kickoff to a lot of what's coming, because you've got Forza coming up after that. You've got Obsidian kicking off, another one who's been putting out a lot for them already.
Yep.
With Avowed next year. And Bethesda's, it's a huge game, and you're seeing some of the early access numbers and stuff. It is going to be large. And my review, it is going to be one of those that I think fits the platform actually very well, because with Game Pass, you've got a lot of people that are going to get a chance to try it. And if they can get over what I would call the initial bumpy beginning, especially having a chance to play it for free, I do think it's going to do something special for a lot of people, but it's going to be something special that is going to be different for a lot of people. Different people are going to like certain sections, another person's going to dump 50 hours into Outpost, somebody else is going to be doing starship building, and somebody's going to enjoy different factions and stories and experiences. So there's a lot of different things for different people. I ended up giving it an 8 for my own review. That's kind of where I landed on it. So 8 out of 10. It does have some bumps and hiccups and things that, I wish would be different coming from just other games you'd like to see, but also due to its scope and scale and the width of the game, not everything can be, to the level of, take one piece of one game over here or one piece of one game over here that is at a really cool level, but none of those try and reach for the stars, not to put, a pun in there, but none of them really quite try and reach quite as far as what this one allows you to do.
Yeah.
So I think with everything it's done, and I will honestly tell you, I'm not a big Bethesda guy. I have never played an Elder Scrolls ever. So that's just one of those.
Me neither.
That is one of those games that I have just flat out missed. Fallout 4, I put a decent amount of time in, but I actually don't think I made it to the finish line. Probably blame Destiny for that one because it's usually what pulls me away from stuff. But just for the Bethesda jank and bugs and stuff like that. While I did have some crashes and things like that, which we everybody can get to their performance experiences, I will say overall, I had a pretty smooth experience. So I think for Xbox, it is going to be a very good, pin to put in their hat. And then going forward, I hope to see them continue with take this momentum and moving forward.
No, so Abantis, I'm glad you said that. I'm going to go right to DC because, it's funny, Abantis, I thought you were going to give it a more of a glamoring, a shine review. And I got to be honest with you, you really kind of hit the nail on the head from what I've done as far as reading a mass amount of different reviews. So Abantis, you sitting at an 8. Okay, now I know you may not do the I don't know if you do the 8.3s and the 8 point. When someone said, what did you think a week ago? I said 84, 85, which by the way, and I got a lot of people going, how could you say such a thing, Mooch? I said, geez, I don't know about you guys, but I would buy an 84, 85 game every single day and twice on Sunday.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that.
I didn't think that was a crazy score at all, Bottas, and I haven't even played it yet, okay? So, but DC, I want to go to you because I know that your time is limited this evening, but DC, just start your kind of thoughts on the game as you went into it first and foremost, and then tell us your review. And then I do want to ask you the same question that I asked Abantis. Is this the Xbox killer app that they've been waiting for, that exclusive that, yes, Halo Infinite did what it did. It was kind of there and it kind of fizzled out a bit. And of course, Forza Horizon 5 is an outstanding game, but it's Forza Horizon, right? It's not something that I'm going to talk about for week in, week in, week out. Where were you, DC, on Starfield before you went in, and then how your experience kind of as you played through the game?
I think I was not won over by the trailers. Even the gameplay and stuff just didn't really particularly strike me. I'm very much an old school Bethesda fan. I began with Morrowind on the original Xbox and put hundreds of hours of that, plus all the DLCs, becoming a werewolf and all that. Then I got Oblivion, Skyrim. I got into Fallout pretty late, but then I did Fallout 3, New Vegas, Fallout 4. I've kind of loved the different waves of Bethesda projects, just the build up, the hype, the game. So going into Starfield, I was kind of just so lukewarm because something about this universe seemed kind of dry. And obviously I only have about 10 hours into it. I have heard the game just gets better and better and better. And I can already see those hints to it. I can already definitely see that it's going to get better and better. But man, I called my video, I can't review Starfield. And in the video, I basically said, I can tell this is one of those games that you're supposed to play 60, 70, 80 hours before it fully clicks. But man, I gotta admit, this first 10 hours has not been pleasurable. I have not enjoyed the way that you sort of just teleport from planet to planet. Once you've been to a place once, you can just at any point, on the surface of a planet, click the star map and teleport to another planet. So at times I don't even see my ship. I don't even have to get out of my ship. I don't know. It feels like the game is in a really big hurry to get you places. And I feel like I'm already missing that natural environmental storytelling that makes Bethesda great. I enjoy those opening moments of walking out of Vault 111, or the first time you get to Whiterun and you're actually climbing up that hill and you see a dragon off in the distance. I feel like Starfield has no big opening freak moment. And I don't know, that's really hurting it for me. I can tell the game is good. I'm not going to say the game is bad. I can just tell that for me, it is not clicking at all, and I really wish it was as a Bethesda fan.
So wait, and I want the great Mr. Babbitt has joined us. Mr. Babbitt, it's always an honor to have you on the show, especially when we're talking big release games like this, and you're your ears to the ground when it comes to this stuff. But real quick, Mr. Babbitt, before I go to you about this, you hear DC, and I got to say the one thing, because I've watched so many reviews in the past 24 hours. I honestly, I think I haven't played a minute of this game, and I feel like I could give a review. But my point being is, about this, you hear that. Do you think DC's experiencing this? Because I
was in the same boat. I mean, I'll
I was gonna say, do you think
I was in a very similar boat? I was honestly messaging a couple of other people I was knowing, and early on in my head, I was kind of like, am I gonna feel like putting a 6 on this game? That is where I was in the first, 15, like anywhere 10 to 25 hours. Like it took some time for me to start getting skills in place and getting comfortable with like fast travel sometimes really does become quick, but then when you get to like some space combat and you have a good dogfight and then you start finding some different weapons and skills, you can't get to tier 4, so things really do start making a difference.
Yeah.
Understanding, how to use your companions. Like encumbrance is still a royal pain in the butt.
Oh yeah,
you can
I've already
get
bumped
to
into that a tiny bit.
yeah. And then especially if you get to the point where you're like, well, I have cool stuff, I don't want to put anything down, and then all of a sudden you like run enough, you run out of, you have to like basically stop. So the encumbrance system, you get to a point where you can get past it, but early on in a game that shows you 1 million things that you can interact with, and you want to pick them up, and then all of a sudden you realize that was not the best idea. The early stages of this game, and I think that's one thing I've probably gathered from other reviews as well, the early stages are rough. I mean, I reviewed it at about 80 hours, and it was there was some point where like kind of made it over the hump and really started getting into the meat of some of the like faction quests, and the main quest started picking up, and then I had some good space combat and got a few upgrades to my ship that made some things. It takes I hate saying this, but it's like the amount of time you put in will likely, the more you put in, the more you increase it. And it's kind of like saying, hey, make sure you watch the first 3 seasons of this 10 season show.
Yeah.
It gets really good at season 4, and it's kind of like
yeah.
I don't
like,
have the time to invest.
If I can just ask you
I
something.
don't want to. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
That's why I ask you something real quickly. Did without, I know we're not going to go into that other mode, but
Yeah, I'm not touching any of that stuff.
did you do it the way that we're knowing now that you're supposed to do it in the beginning?
Well, I mean, what are you talking about? Like, do you think I played the game well in the beginning? Is that what you're
No,
wondering?
because in the beginning you're supposed to, I don't way on here, but you're supposed to do something in the beginning. You're supposed to complete something in the beginning before you do other stuff. And
like, I mean, I probably, it was, hadn't played a Bethesda game in a while, so I was doing random, shiny object squirrel moments
Yeah,
all over the place
that's
because
me.
it gives
That's
you a
gonna
bunch of
be
side quests. Those are going to happen. And I do recommend, don't like completely disregard those, but don't like, actually, there's a reason there's a main in the faction stories. That's kind of where the main course of this game involves a lot of that type of stuff. So if you avoid those for a while, you are going to have a slower experience. Those start opening things up, just giving you more opportunities, a little bit more funds to work with, so you got some flexibility. So I do recommend, like, I'm not saying beeline the main quest by any means, but I would do a little of the main, little of the factions, and you're like, what's this side quest over here? Go do one and kind of do a little bit of that type of stuff. But if you just go all random side quests and activities and you just want to go, jumping around between planets, that's not really going to be where, especially the beginning, is going to feel great.
I mean, I gotta be honest, that really puts a lot of my fears at ease. I had the idea of, I kind of want to do a secondary review, like the fact that you've already put 80 hours into it. I hear a lot of people saying they put 60, 80, 100 hours into it, and you still feel like you're at the start because stuff opens up. I kind of want to just beeline, crush the whole main quest, see where the game's at, and then explore and stuff. I kind of want to do like a secondary review in like 3 weeks, especially once there start being mods. I've heard the mod scene is already really like fixing the FOV and stuff a lot. So since it's on Game Pass, I've already got it. Yeah, exactly.
That's totally the opposite of how I normally approach like big RPGs. I'm the kind of guy who like, I'll do every side thing and save the main thing for last, but I keep hearing that I should not do that on this one. So
yeah,
I'm glad,
I was like, I'm
glad that's reinforced.
Yeah, I wouldn't say you have to go, like, because it's Constellation. That is if you haven't watched the Starfield Direct, that's kind of one thing that's probably fair to say. Constellation is the main faction. That is where like your game begins, and that is what involves the rolling some credits. That's all I'm gonna say. But the factions are also the meat of that. So I was like, I wouldn't beeline the main, but I would do some of the main and then go do some of the cool faction stuff, because those are just as good. But then like kind of teeter back and forth between those. But if you're just doing like little side quests, there are some in my review. I talk about one side quest where I'm like, I don't know what decision to make. If I want to like side with the corporate turd or the entitled traveler, and I don't know if I really want to help either one. There are some very interesting moments in the side quest, but the real good stuff, like main, faction, And then, if you want a little breather, go see what a weird side quest happened, or just travel to a planet and have a grandmother ask you over for dinner or something. It's hilarious, but yeah, I will
So-
tell you,
Ebontis,
If you-
are the
if you're
are the side quests as memorable as like some of the side quests from Witcher 3? I remember as I played through Witcher 3, I remember saying multiple times that I enjoyed doing the side quests and the small nuanced things more than the main quests most of the time. Did you find that in this game, or no, it was a 50-50 split?
okay, so I'm gonna lump the main constellation along with factions as all big and high quality. Side quests are going to be smaller than those, but if you're saying factions versus constellation,
Yeah.
those can be just as good, if not better, depending on what you like, what kind of resonates with you. But the factions are legit. Definitely don't skip on those. Like, you may not be like, hey, I don't want to do this one, but there's some pretty awesome stuff in those just as much as the main. The random more side stuff are a little a little lower level, but there's still some cool moments in there between choice, how you tackle the problems and stuff like that. But the big ones between factions and main, those are all legit.
Okay, now, Mr. Badbit, may I ask you? I apologize, I didn't get a chance to talk to you before behind the scenes. How have you played Starfield? Are you planning to play Starfield if you haven't started?
Yeah, I have not started. I am really interested of jumping in and kind of forming my own opinion, because from what I've heard from y'all, this could be a game that's right up my alley, or something like akin to like a Persona, where my problem with like JRPGs in particular is they take a really long time to onboard you. So when I hear the game gets good after 10 hours, I'm like, ooh, that worries me.
I think it's even longer
Because
than that, Badbit.
Yeah.
It's a fair worry, because that's, talking to one of my co-hosts on Last Word, onboarding was one of the words of choice that was used, being a bit rough. That's why, honestly, any place you find beginners tips, try not to spoil anything. And that's kind of why I went spoiler free heavy, just to make sure I dodged a lot of things.
Yeah.
It is going to take a little time to sink into, but when you get started, if you focus on the main, and then if you see, hey, here's a faction quest you can get involved in, spend some time on those, as opposed to, hey, what happens if I just travel to this planet? What happens? Save that stuff for later. Spend a decent amount of time in the factions and the main first, and it will kind of let you wrap your head around stuff while you're doing cool things, as opposed to doing stuff that feels a little less important while you're also kind of confused with systems.
Okay. Yeah.
So let me ask this question real quick.
Everything you just said, that's the thing that kind of worries me.
And
Because,
I'll be honest, that's the truth though. I told you early on, it was in my head early, I was like, is this like a 6.5? And then I landed on an 8 when I was done. But it was the journey to get there is a journey. I can't lie on that one.
For me,
Go for it, Deepak.
for me personally, I'm willing to put the time in to learn all of these mechanics just because of what the game actually allows me to do. Exploration to different planets and all the side quests. And I'm a huge sci-fi guy, and I'm the opposite of a lot of you guys. I actually don't play Bethesda. I've never been into those type of games.
Well, me
from
neither,
back
Dave.
in the 360 days. I just thought they were really janky, and I was more into like Max Payne and like these other action games that had fantastic graphics. And for me, I couldn't get past the graphics, and that might be superficial on my part, but I'm the type of gamer, I want my graphics there and I want my gameplay there. I don't want just graphics and crappy gameplay. I want both of them together. And I think I play a lot of my games on PC, and I have a PlayStation 5, I have an Xbox Series X. I think these consoles and of course PC are capable of doing both good graphics and good gameplay. So like I said, I wasn't interested in those games before. When Starfield was announced, I was really interested in and the graphics, I was like, wow, this looks really good. And a lot of people were saying, this is Bethesda's best looking title. And I would have to agree, because I never liked any of their games the way that it looked. And the scope of this game, and that it's sci-fi based, is enough for me. And I think most people to grind through, some of the trivial stuff in the beginning to get to the meat of the game,
My question, D and Abontis, you guys could kind of answer this, is what is the time to spaceship? How long does it take for me to go out there and craft my Millennium Falcon? Because when
Okay, craft or fly a spaceship at all. That's a
You fly the
very big
spaceship
Both.
right away.
You're
Yeah,
gonna get in space in about 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome. All right,
Yeah.
I could be in.
So
Like
listen, so
that-
I
'cause,
got
like,
Yeah, it
what-
doesn't take long.
Now, Mr.
But
Badbit,
when
you-
you're talking
my
about
other
crafting, is
question-
more end game. I'll tell you that.
Okay, it's more.
Yeah, because
endgame.
the game is very deep, right? So
Yeah.
it's a deep game. It's gonna require some type of patience. But like I said, if you like the genre, you're gonna like this game. You like Mass Effect, you're definitely gonna like this game.
So I got
Okay.
a couple
Yeah.
super chats that I want to ask you guys a little more hard hitting questions when it comes to the game, and actually, and this goes for Brap. I really have a question for you coming up. I do want to say Thane Mithra. He says, will Starfield really live up to the hype and expectations? Question mark. We're going to get into that, Mithra. We're going to get into that. The great Sir X-Man says, hello, everyone. Wish I was on the show tonight. Sir X-Man, let's see how the second half of the show goes right now. I have a couple of these guests that I've wanted to be on the show for a while, and they have to leave early. Let me see what I can do, Sir X-Man. Oh, you know that you're always welcome. The great Sir X-Man's been with me, a dear friend of mine for ages. The great Sir X-Man. Thank you for being here. Go ahead. I was going to read this last one was Bony Fire. I always say it wrong. I get all these YouTube names wrong, and I apologize. T Fire, I'll call you. He says, so a game that's supposed to be played as you like, ... don't play as you like, ... Is no one else hearing this? I don't think anyone's necessarily saying, T-Fire, that you can't go in and play this game the way you want to play. What Ibantis was doing, and Ibantis, I'm going to put words in your mouth. Tell me if this is right or wrong. All he was doing was giving you a formula for how the game would probably just mesh out best as you went through it. You want to do all the side missions? Do all of them. Gamers Gambit said himself, he likes to usually do, that's me too, by the way. I usually do all side missions because I'm near the end of Final Fantasy 16. I do, whenever those green circles pop up, I do all of them. Then I go back to main mission. Then I wipe out side, and then I go back to main. But now that I'm here in Abantis, I'm going to tell you, and listen, I look at this as a positive. I'm going to go ahead and take his advice, someone who's got 80 hours in, that says, hey, Mooch, this is how you're probably going to get maximum enjoyment out of this game. Do a dabble of both. Do a 50-50 blend, which I think all of us can handle. Who did I take the mic away from? Someone just wanted to comment. Did somebody want to say something? D?
No, I was going to say something. I was going to say, oh, yes. He was asking whether or not this is like, a thing for Xbox. I got to say, this is the first time in a long time that I've seen a game from Xbox really trending. And like this game is trending and the engagement is high and the streams are high. And, I'm even seeing, some gamers that are, predominantly PlayStation 5 gamers even coming out and saying, you know what, it looks like you guys have a good game here. I'll give it to you guys. I wish I was playing this game right now. This is, you got me here. There's one game that I actually wish that I was playing. And so, we're seeing a big engagement for this game. And I think this is definitely a step in the right direction for Microsoft, for the Xbox brand, for their studios, for Bethesda. And Bethesda has they got a historied past, right? A lot of people, Skyrim, some of these other games, they're a part of their childhood. They're a part of their culture, right? So I think this is big. It's going to be big, man. I think it's a step in the right direction. They did everything right. Like I was complaining towards the end that the marketing, there didn't seem to be a lot of marketing, but they did kind of ramp it up towards the end. We got the nice Constellation edition, special edition with the watch. You got the what do you call those things, that the covers for there's a name for, what do they call them?
You got a whole song by a pop band.
What's the covers for the Xbox Series X's? What are they calling them now?
They got
I think they're just called covers.
Yeah,
right?
the
covers,
wraps.
the
Yeah, the
wraps.
wraps.
Oh, wraps.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they came out with the Starfield wrap. You got the nice Starfield controller. You got the headset. So they're doing pretty good, man. And
I mean,
we're here talking about it, right?
That's right.
The concurrent number right now on Steam's like over 100,000, right? People playing it.
That's a
and
lot.
This is like that's at the $100 tier, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then you have like over 250,000 people watching it on Twitch. And so like I feel like a lot of us, who cover the platforms often forget that like there are some games that just have pedigrees and platforms in amongst themselves. Like, there are Bethesda fans. They are gonna be chomping at the bit at this game, just like they would if there's a Fallout or an Elder Scrolls event, right? Like or a game that dropped. So like we often forget games like Minecraft are still incredibly important. Those games are platforms for millions of gamers. It's often outside our purview, so we don't notice it. But like yeah, Starfield right now is launched at a really strong, in a really strong way, and is resonating with a lot of gamers. We talked about it on the Trophy Room. It's a PlayStation podcast, and we were just like, we want to champion y'all because when Xbox puts out games like Starfield, then the more games that they put out like Starfield, the less PlayStation gets to raise the price of PSN by like 35%. So to me, I want to see Xbox do great, and I'm right there with you, man. This is a step in the right direction.
Yes,
I love to see it.
Yeah, and
I also
think
want
the
to point out.
setting. I think the setting is huge as well. Like there isn't anybody I've ever talked to in my entire life that isn't fascinated with outer space. That alone draws people in. It's a great setting, and I also think it's a step in the right direction. I mean, what Xbox needed the most, in my opinion, was new, fresh IP. Something that's not Halo, Gears, or Forza that can draw numbers. And they finally have something new, something fresh, something we haven't experienced before. I think that's really big for them.
And I also think it's a litmus test for Xbox Game Pass, because a lot of people are saying, "Oh, no, it's on Game Pass, it's going to hurt the sales." But you're seeing people that have Xbox Game Pass; they're paying the $20-$30, whatever it is, to get the early access. So I believe, when it's all said and done, when they release the numbers, I believe this game is going to generate a lot of revenue. I think we're going to be surprised on how much revenue it generates.
That's one thing I'm going to be paying attention to, Dean. There's a lot of people asking that, not only in the super chats, but in the chat here. They're saying basically, is this game going to have legs? Now, I do want to say shout out and thank you so much to Than Mithra for the, $100 in the super chat. He says, Mooch, here is Starfield on me. I'll wait for a true value at Game Pass rates for a buy-in later. Let me tell you something. I always like to do something for the audience when they do that. I will be picking up this game thanks to Thane Mithra, and I will be doing a review on it. Now, listen, I'm going to do a quick little promo here. I will have the review out by Monday or Tuesday. That's my word to you guys. I have family here over the weekend. I don't care. For a gift like that, I feel I owe Thane and the community that. So I will give my 2 cents. Won't be able to beat it by Monday, but a good 48 to 72 hour review of it, and I will have my hours logged on that. I just want to say thanks so much for that super chat. The great Gemini J here, and this is a question for Abantis, and then I'm going to start drilling the panel with some of my questions. Gemini J says, how does a game built on exploration and doing what you want when you want, it says it twice, when you want, gets an 8 if you have to play a specific way in order for you to enjoy it? Gemini, I think, pardon me, Abantis, I think you may have to explain to Gemini, maybe the audience again, and maybe I'm reading that super chat wrong, but I think a lot of people are saying that your advice was this is how you need to play it. That was just merely your 2 cents on it. You can do whatever you want.
I mean, I've spent 100 hours in the game. Like, there's a ton of stuff to do in the game. If you try and tinker with, say, building your ship for a little while early on, you're not going to have that much money. You're not going to have access to certain parts depending on what skills you get into. And it is like just a system that may be a little cumbersome and also a little like restrictive at first. So it's like, if you're like, okay, cool, let me go talk to this guy that I land and I can work on building my ship. Well, I can't really do that much right now. That's kind of the thing, is like, that's stuff that's a little easier to get into later because you can enjoy it more later on. You can honestly, like, one of the first things that happened when I walked into the main city, they're like, hey, go talk to the scientist, like staring at a tree. This is just the start of a quest.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went over, talked to him, led me down a path, and then all of a sudden it sent me places and did some other things. That can be just as much how you play this game as anything else. But the biggest thing is some people will be like, as I forget which one of you all said it, some people will try and save that main quest until the end. And my recommendation is just trying to mix the big stuff in. Even if you want to do the other stuff, just every so often go do some of that stuff too. And I think your experience on the whole will be a little just kind of more enjoyable.
Mm-hmm.
If you're like, hey, I'm a Bethesda gamer, I love these things, I know what I'm going to do, slow burn, let me tinker with a bunch of random crap for a while and just do what I want to do, and then I'm going to go talk to the quest guy, you can 100% do that. But just from my hours, the things that you're going to get access to, the things that are going to kind of open up doors that are going to slowly start to open, just make your journey to have a little bit more freedom to do what you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of kick a few of those things off and you're going to have even more journey. Like, you can deal with contraband. Not a crazy thing to say. I didn't start one of the factions for a long time, so I didn't know what the hell to do with contraband. So if you like kick off a couple of things and you're like, oh, that's how I can manage it. That was like 25 hours later. So there, and again, that's not a thing you have to be required to interact with, but I was very curious how to work with it. And then it was kind of presented very quickly once I started a few couple things. So it's not the idea of like, I'm saying anyone should play this game a certain way. All I'm saying is like, from my experience of what I've seen in the game so far, try and not just do all side stuff or all main, try and give yourself a good mix so things kind of progress in pieces together, as opposed to doing, okay, I'm going to do every side quest and activity before I touch the other stuff, or I'm going to do the main quest before I even talk to the factions. So it's just, I think you're going to have a better experience from my experience if you give yourself a mix of a little bit of everything. Do a side quest here, do a faction here, do a little main mission, and then just go talk to a dude and see what he has to say.
Yeah,
like, all of that's going to be fun.
And coming from not playing the game at all, I just want to say to the audience again, I think what you're hearing from Ebontis is that's just good advice. That's not advice you have to take by no means. The great Stick Figures here, shout out to Stick Figure. He says, does many things good, but nothing great. 8 out of 10. And let me just tell you guys, Stick Figure is a huge Xbox fan. So to hear Stick say that means something. The other thing is shout out to Jez Gordon. I follow Jez, of course. We follow each other on Twitter for years. And Jez says, if you really do want, I think it was Jez. If I'm misspeaking, I always apologize. But he said, do play the game on a hard level. That's something that I've heard from many people. I would be playing this on hard or very hard. They said that it's playing it on normal or whatever the stages are could be a bit easy. Brap, Mike, I want to go to Brap real quick, and then I got a question for DC. DC, trust me, I've got some real good whoppers for you to answer on this game in a moment. Brap, you were really excited about this game. You haven't stopped tweeting about it. You haven't stopped talking about it on this show. I know you've been vocal on Brap. You have, I don't know, 5 hours into the game, 3 hours, 10 hours. You're in the 10-hour range. Brap, where are you from a week ago to today? Because, I mean, you were literally chopping at the bit. Are you more in the Ebontis camp right now, or a little bit more in DC's world where he's questioning the first 10 hours?
So yeah, I'm definitely one of those Bethesda fans. Actually, I almost went to go work there 2 years ago. Yeah, I think if it wasn't for my having played other Bethesda games, I'm not as bothered by that 20-hour, 25-hour ramp up period, because it's there.
Yep.
But I know what to expect. Like this game feels familiar to me. Like I've played what I'm experiencing. There's been faster ramp ups with other Bethesda games, but still there's certain elements of that of Starfield that are very Bethesda, very Fallout 4-ish, very Elder Scrolls ish. And so I'm willing to have patience with it and kind of just kind of grind it out.
Yeah.
And actually, what Ebontis said, I've heard from other people too, in terms of how to approach the game, which is how I'm doing it. You can easily get lost in this game. Literally, you can pick up everything.
Well, the game doesn't hold your hand. That's the thing.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. And I have some issues with the how they onboard you a little bit. Some things aren't as clear as I would like them to be. But I do think that for me at least, that because I've had experience with the other Bethesda games, and I know what to expect with this game, and some of this game does feel very familiar. It's like kind of coming home, if you will. Except someone's moved the couch, to another, to a different spot. But it's I'm gonna continue, grinding it out and getting to that point where the game starts becoming enjoyable. But outside of my preference and my experience with Bethesda games, and my love for Bethesda games, one thing I have noticed is while Todd Howard's vision of being able to interact with everything, Ebontis said this earlier, you can literally pick up cups. I mean,
everything.
Pretty much everything.
Yeah,
and it's
rocks,
like,
everything.
okay, Todd, this was cool 20 years ago. With the hardware limitations that we had back then. That scale scope was really cool back then, 20 years ago. Today, I'm not so sure. Like, why?
It takes forever to loot. It takes forever. It's like here's a cup, here's a paper clip. It's like, I don't need those. Don't need to be highlighted.
Do you need to
exactly?
for those?
It's like why? like what value is it adding to me?
So wait,
and
but
to the
Brap,
experience of the game?
Brap, listen, what you're
Yeah.
saying right now, okay, and I want to get into this. The biggest complaint I've seen in all reviews is the inventory management. But Abontis, you're hearing
Yeah.
Gamut, you're hearing Brap. Abontis or DC, if you guys want to chime in, do you guys think that do you need to tell someone like myself or D who's just getting started? Do we need to pick all these things up?
So real quick,
No.
Richard,
Okay,
you
good.
don't, you
All
don't
right.
have to pick everything.
Okay.
And real quick, this has been a feature with Bethesda games for like 20 something years. I think it's an archaic design feature now in game design. I don't know why he's doing it. Like again, for me, it's kind of lost its luster. But again, I could see maybe why maybe some people who never experienced a Bethesda game, this is their first time, why they may think that's cool. But again, I digress. It just doesn't work for me anymore. One thing I will say though, Mooch, I think that the thing that's going to be interesting is when this thing goes, when it hits retail September 6th. I'm wondering how many people are really going to stick with this game.
Yeah.
Ibata said I was toying with the 6. Gene Park had written a bunch of like different like headings, and they weren't
Yeah,
the final
I saw
heading
that
he went
too.
with. Yeah, and other reviewers I've said were like pulling their hair out. Other people I've talked to that reviewed the game were like, if I didn't have to review this game, I may have not gone past the 10-hour mark.
Yeah,
or
I know
15-hour mark.
Maddie in his description, because I was listening to
Yeah.
Maddie and Cog on Duke, and they were talking about Maddie was early on, and he said his, I can't remember, I don't know if it's his wife yet, but fiance at least or something like that.
Yeah.
Was
Yeah,
watching
fiancé.
him and be like, "Are you either really concentrated or you're not having fun?" And early on, he was like, "I'm not having fun," and
Yeah.
it is that. I was like, I am gonna review it. It's like I got access to, so I'm gonna go through, and that was kind of the thing I want, and that's honestly kind of a wonder for me on. Like, nothing against Game Pass, hell of a value. But I also wonder
I
how
knew
many
where you're going with
people. Yeah, you probably exactly do,
Yeah,
because
I
how
was
many
gonna
people
say
are
this,
going to
yeah.
boot it up and say, "Hey, here's this brand new space RPG, cool," and they boot it up for a few hours and be like, "Well, that was free to try," and there's this whole like here that's a lot out there, but I'm like, do I really want to get through this part of it?
Mhm.
And as you said, it's like how many people are going to see like the third trophy, but or the second or third trophy, but you see people that don't make it past the first quarter of the game or something like that, just because the onboarding is a little rough. Do you need to pick up all these things? And then I'm encumbered. How do I get the encumbrance? Then you got to go look at your skills. And then, hey, I want to tinker with ships. And then you realize part of ships is putting, skill points into the skills, which takes time to level up. And then you need to go fight ships to level up your skills, but you want to make your ship better before you go fight ships. Like there's a lot of little things when you start adding them up that some people just aren't going to mesh with. And that's why I was like, I guess the reviews are going to be about 6 to a 10. And I was pretty much spot on because I've seen all of those.
Yeah.
And that's why it depends on the person who plays it, how much time they have. Now, I will say the nice thing, and I said this in my review, is that depending on the person, if it's somebody who is interested in this game, everything can be done in small bursts. So whether you have 6 hours to play or you have like 30 minutes to an hour like every other day, you can still chip away at this game, because nothing is like a Destiny raid, like what I come from. Nothing is a big time commitment. You don't have to be like, oh, let me work on soloing a dungeon and set aside 2 hours. It's like, you can, for one, pause the game too, but you can save damn near everywhere. It auto saves all the time. You can just jump right back in where you were.
This is
So
great
the idea that
information.
it can take a little while to get into, but if somebody's interested in doing that but may not have the hours like us crazy people who do stuff like I do, you're still going to be able to have a chance to get into it, because everything is digestible in small chunks, which, good or bad, it will help some people definitely have a chance to get into it without feeling like, oh, I got to commit 6 hours on a weekend just to feel satisfied.
I'm not gonna lie, Bontis, you just made my entire experience a lot better with that comment. Go ahead, Brap. Then I want to get to
Yeah, I was
DC. Well, I still have DC. I gotta ask him some hard nosed questions.
Yeah, real quick, and I know you get to DC, but I want to pick up back off what Ibanta said, because I was thinking about this with Game Pass. Like, I think it's. I'm wondering if people are going to just say, you know what, I've got like 300 other games to go to. I think there's something to be said when you pay $70 for a game versus when you have a subscription service. I'm inclined to believe, my own theory is that people may be more inclined to put in more time as opposed to just saying, you know what, I'm not doing this, and I'm just going to go to something else, because look, my upfront investment isn't that much. And there's other content I can go to. So I wonder if that's going to happen. But I said this on Twitter. I think this game is potentially going to be somewhat polarizing. I think it's going to be a situation where you either love the game or you're going to hate the game.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be because of that long
Absolutely.
ramp up period. Now, I also said the same thing about Baldur's Gate 3. That's a different conversation.
So here's the thing. So Brap, I'm kind of glad you said that. With the polarizing different thoughts and the different reviews we're seeing, DC, here's my question for you, because I mean, you were pretty adamant in your initial 10-hour review, and you've heard what's going on here. But DC, me and you are kind of a little bit different in gaming. I don't mind necessarily a big open world like this that has a bit of linearity to it, where I can, and it sounds like a boss, it's like you can focus on this and go tackle that and then come back to it another day. DC, you're the opposite. All the things I ever hear in your reports and your reviews and the games you like, you love exploring. DC, one of the things you always talk about is give me this big, vast, open area. Let me go crazy. Let me go to the end of the earth, or the end of the universe, or the end of a solar system, if you will. So my question for you is, with all of this news that came out, especially days before the embargo broke, about boundary limits, and how this game was kind of pitched as that exploration. And I know that that's one of the things that you love to just get lost in. I can't remember one of the reviews you did. You were like, it was a game from about a year ago, and you were like, I just got lost in it. You're like, I didn't even accomplish anything for a day. You're like, I just kept enjoying the sandbox, the world that they gave me. So DC, is the fact that there's boundary limits and that you have to land in, and again, I'm speaking kind of out of place, I haven't played yet, in certain areas on planets, and that you could fly your plane for days and never reach that planet. It's really just kind of like, it's kind of like a faux space. DC, did that take a little bit away from you? And then I do want to hear the rest of the panel too, but I was wondering how that would have affected you.
Now, on the planets themselves, no. I feel like they do that subtle thing where they draw you towards the action. I feel like if you want to bump into the box when you're actually on a planet, you have to try. You're not going to accidentally wander that far. I was afraid because, I saw those videos on Twitter of people like landing on a moon and sprinting west until they hit the load screen. But I think the world when you're on a planet feels fluid. It feels alive. I will admit that one of the things I put in my video that absolutely annoyed the heck out of me is that space felt fake. Like when I'm actually in space, you're like in a big bubble and you see planets and stuff, but you can't fly to them. It's not possible. So you can get dogfights and stuff, but a lot of times I'd like warp to orbit around a planet. I get scanned to make sure I don't have any contraband, and then I open up my star map again, and then I land on the planet. I don't know. I'm a huge lover of Star Trek. I'm obsessed with Star Trek. And I feel like 90% of that show is kind of enjoying that traversal between the planets. I kind of hope that there would be something, like even if it's just 30 seconds, I was hoping we'd have the stereotypical Star Wars long lights across you as you're going into warp speed, or like some sort of like something. It's weird that you don't see it at all. Like the first time you reach like a solar system, it does that little warp animation, but you just don't see it again. I wanted to like walk around on my ship while it's in space. I was hoping there'd be a reason to, like, I don't know, if it takes 5 minutes to reach your destination or even 3 minutes to reach your destination on purpose, so that I have to stop and kind of enjoy the moment and talk to people on my crew. It's weird that everything just teleports you, because even though you're not really teleporting, that's like such a big thing, is that I never feel like I'm in space, never for a second. It always just feels like a series of Bethesda maps that I'm clicking through.
Yeah.
Which is kind of like, I'm afraid that even after 50 or 100 hours, I feel like that effect's not going to wear off even after 50 or 100 hours. Even if I think the dogfights are pretty cool. I think the whole engine calibration system where the meters are going up and down of energy and stuff, I think that's all cool. I feel like I'm just going to always be very aware that I'm playing a tiny game with a very good coat of paint around it.
Okay, and
you're stuck in this little slice of space, and the planets literally don't even move. Like they didn't even have to give me that big of a bubble. Like, just let me fly around the planet. Let me go, hey, there goes. You can't fly from one planet to another. You're just the only thing that tells you you're moving is like these little particles, or you can close the distance on debris, and you can close the distance like on enemies when you're dogfighting. But everything else is static. Like the planets do not move. You cannot. Like if you turn to the left, like it's just there all the time. I mean, you can like face the other direction, but it's just it's like a painting.
That's a bummer, because that's what I want to be. Like I want to be.
I know. I come from Star Citizen
smuggler.
So it hurt. That hurt. That was the biggest gut punch for me. So
Mr. Badbit, I see that your feelings on that sentiment are a bit affected. And Badbit, I'm going to come to you in a second. But D, one of the things you do on a lot of games is you'll break down the graphics, you break down the performance, especially on the PC side. But D, when you hear all of this, the question I guess I have for you is, a lot of the reviewers felt that, yes, at moments, this game has some beautiful scenery. And I just want to let everybody in the audience know, just because I haven't really given my 2 cents, I'm more excited after the reviews, and hearing even Abantis and hearing the 10 reviews or 11 that I watched that say, yes, it gets better after 20 hours. That's not something that's a negative for me. But D, a lot of people are saying there's times in this game, and I'm sure you'll do your review and you'll break it down, that the game feels old, looks last gen. D, you've played a sprinkling of the game, but when you go to do your analysis, D, is that something that you're going to look for to see how they kept this current generation throughout the game, or if it only has a couple of sparkling moments in certain cities and certain areas?
Yeah, I will be looking at that. I'll say, like, my brief interaction, that I'll say the world looks good. I think everything looks. I think it's a good looking game. So I don't know what people are nitpicking about. I think it looks good. I think when you're talking, to your allies there, and they have the helmet on, and the lighting that's going inside the helmet and the shadows, like, it's pretty detailed, man. So I think it's a good looking game. I think it falls apart a little bit with FSR turned on, because FSR is not a perfect solution. I would say, like DLSS, where DLSS will make it as good as native, and in some instances better. And FSR isn't quite as good as DLSS. And I know a lot of people have to use DLSS FSR, because of the hardware that they have, right? This game, it's demanding like a 4060 Ti, like it's demanding everywhere, 3060 Ti, like a lot of PC gamers with mid to low end systems can't get 60 FPS on this. So I've been doing it at 4K native, everything turned up, and I have a 4090, so my case is rare. Not everybody has a 4090, and I can say natively it looks beautiful. I don't have any qualms with the game, but I need to get more into the game. I feel like I don't really have an opinion on the game yet, because I don't have 100 hours or 80 hours or 20 hours like some of these other guys have into this game. Like I said, I'm just scraping the surface, cosmetic stuff, like, benchmark stuff. I got to really get into it. And tonight after the stream, that's when I'm just not going to care and just dive right into the game completely, right?
Absolutely.
So from a graphic standpoint, I think it looks good. I don't know what everyone's complaining about. I don't think there's any game out there that's perfect. If we nitpick at a lot of games, we're going to find certain things that aren't accurate. So I think it looks good.
Yeah, I think the
I think
game
it
looks pretty darn
crispy.
good. Yeah.
Yeah, it just has Bethesda faces, and if you've played Bethesda games, you kind of know what that means. So,
Yeah.
I mean, and if you can look past that, I think there's a lot of sites to be had that are very pretty.
So I gotta bounce. I gotta go eat. And also, I'm working on. I have Baldur's Gate early on PlayStation 5. So actually, I have to film that video for tomorrow.
DC,
But
DC,
it's nice talking to y'all.
I want to say thanks for being here, DC. And also, it reminds me on the checklist for Christmas to start game sharing with you on PlayStation. So DC, always great to have you. Please keep the liveliness and the enthusiasm on your channel. Let people know where they can find you. And thanks for being here tonight. Really appreciate it, DC.
Just youtube.com/dreamcast guy. I've got like 3 videos about Starfield saying it's mid because I'm a jerk. So if you want to see me be a jerk, go watch those. Y'all have a great night.
Thanks, DC. Appreciate you being here. D, let me go back to you. I've got to take care of this super chat. But D, listen, we've all know, right? I do CrossFire. You're on some great podcasts as well. Shout out to RDX. I want to say, Moonshot here says, question for D. After listening to you bash nearly every PlayStation game that scored an 88 since the beginning of this gen, is an 87 now considered a banger? Now, of course, there's a bit of the console war in there, but I mean, D, what do you think about these numbers? Are these numbers relevant to you?
First of all, that's an inaccurate statement. I've never said an 88 game is trash. Any game that is, I would say, 70 and above is worth a playthrough. Okay, so that's nonsense. I think, unfortunately, with Xbox, you're going to get some media bias. You're also going to get people reviewing games that don't like the genre, that maybe they don't like space exploration, maybe they don't like RPGs, and they're going to rate it a little bit lower. And I think we have this with every single game. I think some games are more appreciated by the gaming media because, there's a few outliers. I would say a an 8 and up is a fair score for this game. I see some people scoring at 5, scoring at 6, and like I don't think that represents what this game is doing, right?
Mhm.
So you can't always go by the scores. That being said, an 87 is a great score. That is a good score. That's a must play. I know we have some games out there that are scored higher, like a 92 or whatever. You have Tears of the Kingdom, and once again, I've cleared Tears of the Kingdom. It's a good
Mhm.
game, but graphically, like that game should be docked. That game should not be a 10 because of its graphics and because of its frame rate on the Switch, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
But it scored a 10, across the board. So, we got to call a spade. And what I will say once again, I think any game over 70 or over 7 is worth a play.
Mhm.
And I think 87, 88, 89, 90 is a good score. It's a great score. And RPGs aren't for everybody, right? And much less sci-fi RPG games. They're not for everybody. So some people are going to love it. Some people are going to hate it. I think the numbers speak for itself. The engagement and, it's trending. And we've been talking about this game for the last 45 minutes and the game really isn't out for another 4 days or whatever.
Yeah. Well, let me ask this question. So, D, I'm glad you kind of defended yourself there. Bontis, I want to ask you because we all have very similar friends, and we know that they do outstanding work in the gaming community. But a lot of people have been asking, "Hey, Mooch, ask this question." So, a question I have for Bontis, and I'm just curious of his answer in particular, but I want to hear the panels as well. Is now we are sitting at around an 87 on the Xbox score for this. There's going to be a lot more reviews coming in next week. As we know, The Guardian, a few others, other big outlets are going to be getting the. So, my question for Ibontis here, and then D, I want to hear your take too, is that do we feel this 87? Because right now I have a list of things like Generation Xbox 99, Somos Xbox 98, Mondo Xbox 97, Xbox Era 97. A lot of these 97s and 10 out of 10s that are all going into the Metacritic algorithm are all very Xbox centric channels and shows that are definitely in favor of Xbox. So, Ibontis, is the 87, and you said 8, so we know where you stand. But, I mean, do you think the 87 holds as it currently is? Is it a little bit being pushed in another direction? And when these reviews come next week, will we see it go up a little or down a little?
My guess is it will probably settle down a little depending on who gets copies and when and averages and everything. I mean, if you play this game and you give it a fair critique, everybody's going to come to a different opinion, as you said,
That's right.
because it depends on who's reviewing it. Are they RPG fans? Have you ever played a Bethesda game? I told you early on, my schedule even changed over time, and I wanted to make sure I rolled credits to give it a fair discussion. Again, if you have, halfway through the game, you don't experience some of the factions, you're like, well, the main quest was pretty cool, but then, the factions were okay, and I didn't get that deep into them. It's like, who is the review for, though? Is it the person who's like, I'm going to go put 100 hours in this game? Or is it like, hey, do you think the first 5 hours are worth playing? That's going to be a different score in and of itself. My guess is bigger publications who are going to be on the critical side probably will bring it down a couple of ticks. I do feel like the mid 80s is probably where it's going to land, whether it's an 84 or an 87. I mean, you're kind of splitting hairs at that point, probably with the
Which
averages.
is still a great score.
It is.
Well, that exactly. Like I give it an 8. Hell, I share a podcast with Cognito and Ty Guy Travis, and Travis works at IGN, and he's been reviewing like a madman.
Yes.
So it's like when I look at it, I try and go by the IGN because it's like I feel like the 10-point scale makes you make some hard decisions. Like the 5-point scale, kind of funny, is hard sometimes.
Yep.
And it works right now because it'd be a 4 out of 5. But if a game's a 7, you're like, where the hell do I put it? So I like the 10. And if you're going to get into like, I want to give it an 8.72, I'm like, what are you doing? Like, if you're that detailed, I don't understand it. Or, definitely at that point.
And 3/4 of the scale is massively underused, and that's why we see a 7 and we're like, ooh, it's because we don't ever use the first 3/4 of the scale.
Travis, when he reviews, he uses that whole damn scale. He's had 2s and he's had 9s and is justified most of the time in all of those. But and that's
Travis
why it's
is
like,
a guy, he's a guy that works at IGN and prefers his Xbox. Yeah.
Hey, just to speak on what you said there, I think it's either gonna stay at an 87 or it's gonna go to 88, 80. I don't think
it's gonna go up a little.
Oh, you think it'll go up?
I think it could. And when these guys are doing their full review, big sites. I don't understand how they not put into consideration, because like I said, this is my first Bethesda game and everybody's telling me, oh my gosh, this game is going to release with so many bugs. I'm like, no, this game needs to release with no bugs, because Xbox really needs to come out the gate firing on all cylinders for this game because of the spectacle of Redfall. So they can't afford to have this game buggy. And they're like, oh no, but Bethesda is buggy. And some other guys are telling me, oh, don't you know about the Bethesda bug charm? Like it's a part of the game. And I was like, no, it can't release with it. Now this game, apparently, because you guys have all played Bethesda games, is probably their least buggy game. No one's really reporting any huge game-breaking bugs or any bugs, pretty much. Like
I was like, I dealt with one pre-release, but that's been resolved.
right.
So it was like, that's another piece that like my review changed as I got to the end of my playtime because of the experience I got. Now, when you're going to talk about what the engine is capable of, there's times I have conversations with people, I'm talking to the back of their head a little while, and it's during the conversation, they slowly turn around, and then they end up facing you, and then I've got a companion who chimes in, and she didn't quite make it to the conversation. I'm talking to a wall. So those things happen too. That's why I was like, if you play this game enough, to call it a 10 is a bit surprising for me, between the encumbrance system, the onboarding process, the early part of the game, the fact that it's not perfect. I mean, there's ones where people didn't have faces. Some people were bald for some people. I've definitely heard those bugs are still going to be out there. Now, I also will agree and say this is probably one of their more polished ones. And the year that they got to work on it, I feel has done a lot. No game this wide can be perfect, but I will say my general experience has been fairly smooth. Not perfect, smooth. I fell through an elevator floor multiple times. I was trying to dock, and then I was like, okay, so I barely got my toe in the elevator so I could press the button, and I got it. There was a point where I was trying to dock with a ship that was related to a quest, and I literally had to kind of back out and reload a save back, and then I could, dock with the ship. And it was the fact that I had to get up from my cockpit seat and then go through the port door, as opposed to just from the actual front, FPS ship view, just go straight onto the ship. So it was just little things like that. But it's because the game is so damn big, stuff's going to happen occasionally. It's and it's also going to be, how many of those things are you okay with, and how many of those things is it going to be a point where one of them breaks you?
It's funny.
Or
So,
doesn't.
Bontis, you say that, and I do want to give a shout out. One of the ones that I enjoyed watching the review. I did watch the kind of funny where it was Greg Miller, it was Paris. Tim Geddes had not played the game. We were doing a little bit of a joke behind the scenes there. I'm the Tim Geddes on this show because I didn't play it. But they were going through, and I can't remember. Oh geez, it was Paris gave a really good. Paris gave probably a really good breakdown on how he really enjoyed it. But then as Greg was going through he didn't give a score. I believe Paris gave it a 4 out of 5.
4 out of 5.
Yep. And Greg refused to give a score. Blessing gave it a 3 out of 5. Blessing had mentioned a funny story too. Greg had given a story, but Blessing's story was, I couldn't finish on PC one of my missions. I had to actually go over to my Xbox, do the mission on Xbox, and then go back to my PC. So, but the one thing I do want to say is Bethesda's bugs, I'm not going to defend it. That's one of the things that, I'm in D's camp. I really didn't play a lot of Bethesda games. You guys know this. I've said it on the show every week, so no one should be shocked. I didn't really care for Fallout. I tried it. Wasn't really my bag. So, I mean, I never played Skyrim. I know maybe me and D are the only two people in the world. But nonetheless, I think when it comes down to it, as long as it's not a game-breaking bug, Ibantis, I thought the way that the kind of funny guys broke it down, they're really saying the same thing that you guys are saying it, that have played it for, DC played it for over 10 hours. You've got 80 hours into it, is that every single player is affected differently. That's why we're seeing this range from 7 to 10. It's hitting every gamer just a bit different. I had a question here too. I was going to ask the,
I got a question while we're on the topic of reviews. What do you think is the deal with the UK not getting any love? Do you think it is related to the buyout and all the bad feelings with the UK?
Gamut, me and you think on the same wavelength, buddy. I just changed the subject line down there on the scroller. I was going to go to the great Mr. Badbit. Mr. Badbit is he's an embassy. He's one of the gaming embassy folks. I always go to Mr. Badbit when it's a console war situation, because he does such a diplomatic way of answering things. Mr. Badbit, I'll go to you on this one. So I do have to ask the same question that Gamut had. is basically Bethesda's delaying the UK, not all, but a good portion of the UK media and other review codes. Is this a dishonest kind of process coming from Bethesda, Xbox? And people are saying, leave Xbox out of it. This was a Bethesda choice.
Yeah.
That's fine. So we'll say Bethesda for the conversation. Do you think it also did have something to do with maybe the CMA findings?
No, probably nothing
No.
to do with that. It's probably, I mean, if I were to guess, it's something probably PR related.
Yeah,
You
that
know,
would be my
so-
hunch.
Yeah, so like maybe like they just couldn't generate the codes. Maybe they're using a third party person to, or sorry, agency to like do the PR there. Like for example, when you're talking to PlayStation Canada, that's not actually PlayStation. That's a third party agency. So like it could be something as trivial as that, and that's probably the case. I don't think they're holding grudges to like streamers in the UK just because the CMA is making their life a little harder. I think it's something probably trivial of, again, something along the lines of like they just couldn't generate the codes. There's a lot of times where like behind the scenes generating a code is not as like simple as like just pressing a number on a spreadsheet and go, "Ah, we got 10 more codes." They cost money, time, and resources. So it's probably something down to that, maybe localization or something.
So,
Yeah.
so I want to take Mr. Badbit's thought process there, and I guess I'll go to Brap. Brap, I mean, we talk about some of the stuff behind the scenes. I actually really want to believe everything that Mr. Badbit said, but it's CrossFire, so I'll just play devil's advocate for a second here. I'll just say real quick, I think when it comes down to it, this is a game that's 25 years in the making. It was supposed to come out a year ago, right? They delayed it. Here we are. Do you think that they couldn't get digital codes? I mean, even indie studios are getting digital codes. What do you think about this, Brap? Was there a little bit of, because this isn't just, well, I heard you a couple of weeks ago on the show, Mr. Babbitt, just so you know, we mentioned Skillup had mentioned he wasn't going to get a review code. And then I did a little research. I did a little information. Apparently, Skillup had bad, reviews in the past, or it was a little harsh on Bethesda, whatever, which is his job, by the way.
Yeah.
Right. It's his job. They kind of had a falling out, and he's not getting a code. Okay, that's not for me to comment on. But when you have these other publications out there, Brap, do you think that what Mr. Badbit holds water, what he said, or do you think it was a little bit of resentment there, maybe with what's going on over in England and how they've been treated as far as Microsoft Corp?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything nefarious per se. I'm kind of in the camp with what Badbit said.
I think
Yeah,
they're trying to make nothing out of something, or something out of nothing. I don't.
Yeah, I don't think-
my hunch is honestly the fact that it has absolutely nothing to do with UK stuff and anything with the CMA. That is so high up on a Microsoft level.
Yep.
And you're talking about just PR, trying to work with as many companies. Like, I know there's a certain company they worked with because that's here in North America. And maybe it was literally some of that stuff, or if you said certain outlets may have had unfavorable stuff before and they're just choosing not to. It's like, that is my only guess is what it is.
Mhm.
I do not think it is any way related to the acquisition
Yeah.
stuff at
And
all.
also, like, that is completely normal
Mhm.
for PR agencies to do as
yeah,
well.
I've
Yeah.
heard that too. Yeah, I've heard
So,
I've heard people say sometimes the interns get involved and they don't get like
very
codes
much so.
out, or you get
Yeah.
like someone new, and so I've heard that.
PlayStation's as picky as Nintendo is picky, as
Mhm.
Xbox has a
Mhm.
different problem where, look, they're in a distant third, right? So like Xbox's strategy is it's being more liberal. Let's try to bring this out to as many folks as we can, while also trying to make it as damage control-y as possible, right? Like let's give these codes to some safe bets, some maybe ones that are wild cards, and let's try to move away from some of them that have been historically too negative. And again, that sounds nefarious. Part of it is,
Mhm.
but when I tell you everyone does that, everyone does that.
Everyone does it,
PlayStation
yeah.
definitely does it.
So
Nintendo.
PlayStation.
Nintendo 100% does it. They pick and choose.
So the
Yeah.
thing is, Babbitt, I do agree with you. I think that we all. I'm not going to name the names, but there's a lot that PlayStation also doesn't allow early codes to. Nintendo, we know, does it as well. But I don't think we've ever seen a census size that large. I know that there's individuals. They go, we don't give it to this person. We don't give it, and that's all kind of known, right? This seemed like a larger number that got left out than normal. Normally, there's a couple people, and they have large voices and large audiences that they could say, geez, I'm being treated unfairly, blah, blah, blah. But nonetheless, I'll buy the code myself, and my review will be out a week or two later. I get that. This just seemed a little bit larger of a scale than, because I'm right there with you guys. What you and Brap said, I'm nodding my head. I agree with you. I just thought this was a little larger.
Yeah.
And also sometimes PR is weird. I remember this isn't also the weirdest thing Bethesda's done. Back in the day they were like, we're not going to give review codes to anyone. We're just going to give it all to streamers. And because of that, some of their games like Dishonored 2 didn't do as well as they wanted it to. So it's sometimes
great game too. What a travesty that game.
I know it's so good.
It's really good. Yeah.
So I think it's something more trivial than like something nefarious.
Well, let me ask this. So we'll switch over to a different subject here. Abontis, you started the show by saying, hey, I play on PC for the majority, right? And I happen to know that, but I want the audience to kind of refresh the audience there. By the way, audience, please, we're at almost 450 people. Hit that like button, please. Tweet it out. Let everybody know that we are live here. We're having an outstanding discussion with this great panel. Abontis, the other big controversy, and Brap did a lunchtime Brap rant on it, which I can't wait to hear what he has to say on this too. But I always say gaming media veteran.
What am I walking into?
Well, you're walking into it's CrossFire about this. Welcome to the show. So here we are about this. And it's an innocent question, but it sparked controversy, especially when it comes from, IGN, even though the person works for IGN, gaming media veteran, I believe it was Ryan McCaffrey. Shout out to Ryan. He had something, and I have this in quotes, but I don't want to say it was his quote. Shame on me, Brap. I know you probably have it pulled up. 30 FPS on Series X is a fake outrage. That's basically the consensus of it. I mean, it heated up the
Mooch,
the community.
Do you want the exact quote?
Could you please?
Yeah. So he said, by the way, I will say that while I only have 12 hours into Starfield so far, in my opinion, the 30 FPS on Series X fake outrage was just that, fake. Would 60 FPS have been awesome? Sure. Will we get it? Will we get a performance mode patched in later? Probably. But is it playing fine on Series X now? Yep.
So Abontis, when you hear something like that, D, I definitely want to get yours. I know Abontis and D, you're both PC guys. But Abontis, when you hear something like that, and there's a reason you put the money and effort into your PC, but if I could just say, what if you weren't a PC guy and you put $500 into that new console and you've been waiting this whole generation for this big game to come out, and that game is not hitting a 60 frame target? Even if it was to be 1080p 60, you'd probably be okay with it, or 900p 60. Give the option.
No, I wouldn't.
The option's not there. How do you feel about that?
Honestly, Ryan is kind of on the nose because I've got a 5950X and a 3090, so I'm not top hardware. Solid PC, above average for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
But not the best. So I play on a 4K monitor because it's pretty.
Yep.
And there are moments in this game that are absolutely gorgeous. And I will tell you, I checked my frames. They could have been anywhere from 30 to 55 to 40.
Wow.
There's fluctuation in there, even on mine. Now I was playing 4K.
Okay.
And again, if I was playing no FSR, stuff like that, it had some drops and things like that. But just with some FSR on, 4K, medium. So again, I'm not going crazy everything. I will the combat felt good. I mean, it's not Destiny's combat because I'm biased on gameplay, and Destiny is one of the better ones amongst a couple other shooters. It feels good. But everything that I experienced in this game was not taken away from by that frame count. I do not think most of what's going to be in here. I think Ryan said it perfectly. Would 60 be nice? Sure. Would you like some more dynamic resolution scaling if you had, a 60 frames per second, and maybe it'd be a 1440p, because I know Xbox can do 1440p. Would that be an option? Maybe. But do I care? No. Honestly, it did not matter one bit to me, because sure, it feels a little smoother if I turn some settings down, turn the resolution scaling up a little bit, and I can lock it at about 60 or even above in certain places. And then there's other places it's just not going to hit that. But the fact that, it ran smooth with the dynamic resolution for what I experienced the whole time without even messing with it, I had a good time. And believe me, I enjoyed locked 60, and it can be butter smooth, and so does 120. But it didn't take anything away from this game, in my opinion, at all.
Okay. D, what do you think about that? D, you wanted to chime in. I mean, Listen, first of all, Abantis makes a really good point, and I have a 2080 card, and I'm still working. I'm waiting for the 50 series to come out. I will be doing
Same with me.
a build next year. I'm still 2080 Ti with an 8700K. Okay, I am dated as they come. Again, not a great. I'm being told that I'm probably gonna have to play this thing. I'm not. I have a 4K monitor. I want it to look as pretty as Abantis is. But
You
I'm
might
probably
want to play it at 1440.
I'll be doing 14.
I'll tell you that.
Well, wait. I'll be doing from what I hear. I'll be doing 1440p, and I'll be lucky if I'm hitting 45 to 50 frames. So that's fine. I get that. But again, I try to also on this show, look, I have a Series X sitting next to my gaming PC. I did buy this thing to enjoy. I'm not going to sit here, D, and tell you all the propaganda and go back 2 years. I don't care about the whole, we're going to strive for 120, but 60 is the standard. I'm not even going there.
I mean, there's 8K on both of the boxes. They both are full of crap.
No, that's fine. That's fine. But about this, you just said it yourself. You could scale. You chose to scale up to 4K and hit that 30 to 55. If you played at 1440p or lower, you'd be at a steady 60. So
probably closer.
Close.
But
Right.
my experience, being as my experience, could have hovered closer to 30 than 60. Didn't take anything away from it. And honestly, like if you got a Series X and maybe you're playing on OLED, you're not going to give two. I'm trying not to curse here. You're not going to give 2 iotas of any at all because it's going to look gorgeous at times. I mean, yeah, you're going to have the Bethesda faces, but when you go through the gravity drive jump, or when you're sitting there looking at Neon City and you've got the vibrant colors, or you walk into another one of the cities and it's just this gritty industrial mining city underground covered in dust, and it just looks field in. When you start getting into the game and you really sink into just the world that you're in, I didn't care. I didn't.
Yeah.
I mean, it's oh, it'd be nice if it'd be 60. And honestly, these systems still 4K 60. Like you look at Immortals of Avium and UE5. Now we know Unreal Engine 5 can do a lot, but it's also very intensive on things.
Yeah.
So it's things can look pretty, but when you turn around and say it's going to look pretty, but it's only going to run at 30, you're going to have trade-offs. And I think we're just in that the section of hardware right now. People are going to still try and push the boundaries because then you get into ray tracing, which just takes everybody out of it. So it's all of those pieces to me when I walk in. It's I've got a notepad on a desk, and even if it's 4K, it's a pretty generic notepad. But then I sit there and I'm looking at the model of my lawgiver rifle that I've got in my hand, and I'm like, that looks pretty damn crispy. I don't care if it's 30 or 60. That was my experience. And after 100 hours, it's if you are a frame snob, you may find some issues with it, and that is some people are. I enjoy my frames, but I also can accept that not all games are going to hit it. And with everything that this game is trying to do, whether Todd Howard needs to put 100 million different interactable objects in the game or not, what the game is trying to do, and this is the experience you're going to get. If that is an issue for you, you might try and find another RPG or something like that. But honestly, for me, it just didn't detract from everything else that I was doing. Because when I'm sitting there having a one-on-one dialogue point, which happens all the time in these games, frames don't matter.
I respect. You can't take that enjoyment away from you about this. I do want to say the great Jay Barry, and I see Ali. By the way, Ali Capo, True Witty, and Philsbury. I'm going to read all those super chats, but Jay Barry's comes in hot right now on the subject, and he says, "So Aaron Greenberg saying 60 FPS will be the standard with the Xbox Series consoles doesn't matter. They promised the most powerful console. Come on now." So what?
Okay.
Go ahead.
You can make a powerful console, and then you can make a very demanding game. You're going to have a chicken and egg all the way through the generation. And again, PS6 and Xbox Y, whatever the hell they're going to call that one, I'm curious. But whatever it's going to be, same thing's going to happen, because then you're going to be all right, so 4K, 60 frames per second, ray tracing. Then you're going to go for path tracing. I mean, it's going to keep happening. So there's always going to be a give and take on something. This time, it was not that it was locked at 60 frames. If you wanted a game that looked less pretty, had less cool lighting, the lighting's pretty legit in here.
Yeah, it is.
Those are going to be the trade-offs you have. That's just how that goes. You can say 60 frames per second for an in-house studio with a racing game. That's just a certain engine built in a very specific way. You can see Insomniac do it on the other side with Spider-Man, and it's going to be gorgeous even if it's 4K checkerboarded, and that's going to have a 60. Then you're going to have performance ray tracing and a mix in between. All of those are going to be there, but if you're just going to hone in on to the like tooth and nail to one statement 2 years ago about like the launch of a system and not give any flexibility to every different game that launches, it's kind of hard to have a real conversation with somebody like that. And no against to Jay Barry, I've seen you on Twitter. I don't know if I follow you. Not trying to be an ass or anything like that either, but that is the way game development is going to go for probably the next 10 years.
Greenberg's a PR guy. That's his job is to sell you.
PR people's job's to bullshit you guys. Remember,
Absolutely.
Jim Ryan said he believed in generations. You know, like
that lasted what?
We've all
Remember, like the lack of crossplay because of the kids. Like they're gonna say what they need to say in the moment to sell you on the thing. That's
100%.
their job. You know,
and that
everybody's job.
also may sometimes be their intention and hope to be like, we've got a 12 teraflop machine, and the games that we're working with here at the end of the Xbox One generation, those are going to crush like 4K 60. But then they make new generation games that all of a sudden ask more, and then you'd kind of turn around and you have to eat your own words because that's going to have look at Cyberpunk, how much that can ask of a system like mine. It can kind of nearly shut it down. Now you can optimize forever, or you can release a game and have some choices. And that's why, as you said, I think there's probably going to be some performance options later. So if you're worried about that, wait, because maybe it comes later on.
Well, see,
I also think they didn't see Unreal Engine 5 coming, right? Now, Unreal Engine 5 is here. We're seeing with Immortals of Avium that it's really demanding on the consoles. Like, you know, they're like at an up-res 1080p, and it's still not looking that crispy. So that's something that they didn't expect. And also, too, if you look at the PC side of things, like just use common sense now. Okay, they wanted 60 FPS for the majority of games. And I think at the time when they said that, they believed that. And I think they were looking at the current engines and the current games that were out. And yeah, those games would run at 60 FPS, and we got all these new engines. But like I'm saying, if you look on the PC side of things, you got people that have a 2080 Ti, you got people that have 4060 Ti, a 3080 that are struggling to get 60 FPS in this game. I just spoke on my experience with the 4090. And although I do get over 60 FPS, it doesn't stay there. I get drops. I get drops into like, the 40s at native resolution without FSR. So it's a demanding game. It's doing a lot. So it is what it is. I'll say the 30 FPS thing, I'm done with 30 FPS. I just can't play 30 FPS games. And why should I? I have a PC. So if it's not running at 60 FPS on my Series X, I'm going to play it on my PC. End of story. With that being said, though, I will say that the 30 FPS implementation in this game, it isn't too bad. The motion blur that they're using in this game, it really kind of makes up for the lack of fluidity from the 30 FPS. So it's looking pretty good. And, there's a lot of static moments in this game. I forget who brought it up, where you don't really need the 60 FPS per se for that moment. Going forward, though, I would like to see them patch it, because Todd Howard did say that, he had it running at 45 FPS, sometimes 60 FPS on the Series X, but it just wasn't constant. So he decided to lock it at 30. Now, I think they should unlock it, because the majority of gamers, they have a FreeSync capable display now. They have a display that can do VRR. I would say a good 80% of gamers have this now. If you have the money for a Series X or a PlayStation 5, you most likely have the latest TV technology as well. Most people.
No, I agree with you, D. The only thing is you say
unlock
locked.
it. 45 frames per second. It's really smooth with VR. It's virtually like 60 FPS. You don't really see the dips.
I think what you just said is right. I would definitely vote to unlock it. But D, I think I've seen things online. I don't even think the 30 is locked. I've seen it dip below 30 on the Series X in some analysis. I don't. So I mean, and I'm not trying to point finger. But the one thing that I see a lot of people in the chat are saying is, I don't think what Abantis said was wrong as far as how to experience a game and how he enjoyed the game. But the one thing that we all know we can do, and D, I guess I'll ask D, because D, you do these, you're the one that do the analysis a lot. I don't do these, is that the game on the way that Abantis, and I use Abantis because he's doing PC and you are too. The way that you guys
stepped away. What did I miss?
No, you didn't miss anything. I was just saying the way that you guys are enjoying the game, the way you guys can scale. On the Xbox Series X, the game doesn't look as good as it's looking on your guys' rigs, on your PCs. So my point, and that's not a bash. I'm just saying, why not give an option on the Series X, like you said, D, unlock it, right? First of all, unlock it and drop this thing down in resolution and put this thing at a higher frame rate? I mean, that's something that seems like it's capable.
I think for this game, dropping the resolution isn't going to help too much because it's CPU bound. So it is what it is. They're going to have to maybe patch it, see if they can optimize it a little bit better. I think their best bet is just to release it unlocked and let VRR do its work for the people that have the displays that are capable of doing it. I think even at a lower res, it's CPU bound because we're having all types of high hardware and we're still not achieving a locked 60 FPS all the time. Like with a 4090, I should never be having dips into 45s, right? So it's a CPU heavy game. So I don't think in that case it would help as much. What would help is FSR3. Now FSR3 frame generation, that would help tremendously with this game.
Well, I will say PlayStation on the flip side has done a fantastic job. All of their first party games has a 60 FPS option. So, I mean, whether they have to cut back to checkerboard, like I will say PlayStation is doing a fantastic job on that. And it's why I also don't think this is fake outrage. I think it's just different tolerance levels. Like you literally just heard D-Batch say he's done with 30 FPS. He won't do it. And there's plenty of people out there that won't go backwards anymore. So for them, it's not a fake outrage. For them, it's like, well, what the hell?
That's what I wanted to say real quick. I'm sorry. I just wanted to say something real quick. Like what D's saying, what Gamers Game is saying, is that both of them are providing, and what Abanta said. This is where I disagree with Ryan McCaffrey. We've had Ryan on Brap like twice, and Ryan's a nice guy, and I've enjoyed his work over the last 20 plus years. He started off at the official Xbox magazine 20 something years ago, so I've been following him for a long time. What was missing with his comment was that and my expectation of Ryan as a journalist, if he's been a journalist for 20 years, went to school to be a journalist, is that this conversation and what he did lacked nuance and sophistication. And that's the issue that I had. And what everyone's describing here is what we're doing is having a nuanced conversation, because this topic is very nuanced. It isn't. Ryan kind of made a very binary argument of, oh, well, it's just fake outrage, it's console wars. That's what that means.
Right.
Fake outrage, console warring. And no, it's not. Like D's like, I'm not playing 60 or 30 FPS. Gamers said, look, the other side has provided options. I think D said something about they should open it up. People have capable TVs. There were some people that were saying that, well, wait a minute, I got the Series X, got these feature sets, I got this TV. Why not give us the option? They're upset about that. I won't play 30 FPS. I'm with D on that. Like I'm done. I have a capable PC. I'm not doing that anymore. And not that that's going to take away from the enjoyment of the game per se, but there is an addressable market. There are people out there that want those experiences, and we're voicing that kind of disappointment of like, geez, like I want this 60 FPS experience. I want the option to be able to have that 60 FPS experience, whether it's dialing things back, a la what Sony's done with their first party titles. But the issue with Ryan is that he made a very binary argument, and it for me, for somebody who's been a journalist for 20 years, like I would expect like Destin Legary to have that kind of take, but not Ryan McCaffrey. Yeah. And he just really took this, and this is such a nuanced, sophisticated conversation, and he tried to simplify it into console wars. And look, were they console wars? Absolutely, they were running with this stuff. I'm not going to say they weren't.
Oh, absolutely.
But there are people out there legitimately were like, whoa, wait, this is kind of not a good thing for us. We don't want this.
I mean, I don't think the outrage is is fake. I do look, we just had someone in the chat talk about an Xbox official said no more 30 FPS, we're going to 60. And look, you could cling to those words as gospel and you could hang them over their head for sure. If that's what you're expecting when you went out there and bought, whether it's a PlayStation 5 or Xbox Series, you have the right to be disappointed if that is your sticking point, if that's your pain point. For me, I think one of the most beautiful games that is out right now is Sea of Stars. And that's a nostalgia, retro-inspired game. It's, it's like this 16-bit thing that I'm really enjoying. So, to me, it's like a case-by-case basis. I don't want to go back and play Elden Ring in 30 FPS, but when it's like some RPG or whatever have you, I say it on the trophy room all the time. I got dumb eyes. I don't notice a 60 FPS until I notice 60 FPS right in front of me when I switch it like a light switch back and forth. So like to me, I won't notice until I actually see it. So like for what Abantis is saying, it's like it's a give or a take. A lot of these, everything development is sacrifice. You have a vision, you want to hit this target, and sometimes you got to move that target back. Sometimes you got to scale something back to hit that target. And sometimes, frame rate is maybe something that takes a back burner, right?
Yeah.
I always try to say I'm not a developer. I have no idea what it takes to be in development. So like for me, all this stuff is like wizardry and magic. So for me, it's a game by game basis. But for what Ryan is saying, it is a very binary take. I agree with that, Brap. It is a way to going, and maybe he's just trying to phrase it in a way of just like, it didn't bother me. I don't think that this is the worst thing in the world, and maybe it's just like 250 characters holds people back. But sometimes Ryan says things that confuse me too.
Well, yeah.
So,
recently, Ryan's been taking advantage of the Elon Musk payment system. I believe he had a tweet a couple of weeks ago that got millions. It got millions and millions of views. I shout out to LA Capo. He has a long running super chat here. I just want to read it. Shout out to Capo. He says people will realize this, and I believe we're going back to Starfield a bit. I apologize. I just don't want to lose these. He says people will realize this after the dust has settled and notice its limits in repetitiveness. Fast traveling and going to planets is tedious and ruins the entire point of building your own ship. That is basically just a minor feature. You won't spend much time in your cool ship. Maybe he was answering your question as well. He says, good thing about the game, this is maybe to Mr. Badbit, good thing about the game are mostly the combat, though the AI is not much to speak of, and the side mission. So Capo's not being completely negative on the game at all. True Witty says, I got a 4080 laptop and I'm getting 60 to 40 frames max. So he's in the 40 to 60 range with a 4080. Phil's Barry 27. He says Starfield is in the right direction for Xbox, but we still have these Xbox fanboy influencers that still are emotional about IGN, PC Gamer, and GameSpot for 7. Do not let anybody spoil your joy for a game you want to play and buy. I think Phil's, when it comes down to it, I think we kind of touched on this. We don't really have to go over it again. I think we said basically, I gave it, my guess, I didn't give anything. I haven't played it yet. I thought it would land somewhere around an 84 or an 85, and people thought that was low. I think a lot of people were thinking, and D, maybe you can help speak to some of this, is I think a lot of people in the Xbox camp, D had a bounce. D did write me. He said he was only able to stay about an hour and a half, and I kept him here almost 2 hours. Darn it. Almost had him longer. But I did want to see what he was thinking about the Xbox camp, because a lot of people in the Xbox camp, I'll ask Abantis, they were thinking this might be a 95, a 97. This was going to go Baldur's Gate. This was going to go Tears of the Kingdom. I think maybe that's why some people are taking a little bit more offense to the 8s and the 8.5s. Abantis, do you see that maybe the reason some of these people are taking a little bit more hostility towards the IGNs and
getting into
GameSpots?
console wars is such a pain in the royals.
I know, Abantis, welcome to the other side of the world, Abantis.
No, I mean, it's one of those things that I'm just like, I don't care about a console fanboy. If you care too much about a box, like it's a piece of plastic, like get over yourself. Like that is such tiring stuff. Like now, granted, do you own an Xbox? Do you hope that the big new exclusive game that comes out for the system that you own is going to be good? Of course, we all do.
Right.
Do you hope that Baldur's Gate for PC is good? Do you hope that Spider-Man's going to be good? Do you hope that this is going to be good for Xbox? Of course, we all do. But again, you still have to realize, like, find the people whose reviews you trust. That is the only thing I can tell anybody in this situation.
Yeah.
Find the people's reviews you trust. Do you trust a skill up? He might get to it in a couple of weeks. You've never heard of me, doesn't really matter. Then you're like, I don't know your review from Adam, so it doesn't really matter. Do you think, like, Kind of Funny has a good discussion. Do you trust what Ryan McCaffrey says? Wherever you get your reviews from, try and take a collective group of information and see if the things that they're saying are consistent. If there's some giant outlier, is the person giving it a 99 finding no issues with the things that 10 other people are finding issues with? Then there's an outlier. Look for the average of these things and don't just go from one source. And again, if you have that much invested in a game that you want to be good, you're still probably going to have a good, if you are a giant Bethesda fanboy and you are ready for the next giant delivery from Todd Howard to say, this is the space amazing game that I've been dreaming up for 20 years.
Yeah.
You're probably going to have a damn good time because you're a Bethesda gamer. You know what you're going to get into. You probably already understand some of the systems, and it's probably the best Bethesda game that they've ever made, I would guess. Now, some things are going to be like, are you going to travel to 1,000 planets? You probably only need to see about 150 of them, not all 1,000. If you get into outposts and resources and other things and stuff like that, then you can get to the point where I got to go hunt for the right resources. This moon has titanium over here. I mean, is every promise going to be absolutely amazing? But again, it's if you take the collective information that more than one person has said, and you can also realize where you're coming from as a player to say, hey, I love Bethesda games and I'm an Xbox player and I'm pumped for this thing. You could tell every reviewer to kiss off and go enjoy your game for 200 hours and you could still have a good time. Like
it's something that like I think I wrote it on Twitter. It's something that I preached on the trophy room this week. It's like on Twitter I wrote like, how could a reviewer score a game I haven't played yet lower than what I anticipated? Outrageous. It's like a lot of people, I don't believe much in the media bias. Like I think it's silly. I know a lot of folks that work at IGN, they do not care. Like most sane folks do not care. In fact, like most reviewers have that anxiety that like they are the outlier review and they're going to get yelled at. The only person I feel like doesn't have that is Travis. That man does not have, he doesn't have a coward bone in his body. Like
no, he really doesn't, which is fantastic.
Yeah, and I echo what you said, Abantis, because it's like for me, my favorite reviewer is Skill Up. Like he gets what I go for in a video game. And so I gravitate towards his review. I don't look at Metacritic as the success for a video game. I don't see like,
I just hope studios don't either. That's the one big thing I will say.
Yes.
Studios basing it off of that is rough because it's going to be subjective. If you base it off of sales and numbers and engagement and performance for Game Pass, they're going to go for downloads and playtime. Those are fair metrics. And that's like when you hear, I don't know, like 15, 20 years ago when somebody's bonus is based off Metacritic, I was like, that's kind of crappy. But I mean, back to where you were going. Sorry.
And that's exactly the point though. Yeah. Like I think that's important. It's like, when bonuses are tied to like review scores, that's when it's like, come on now, what are we doing? It's silly. But like to yell at people at IGN who had nothing to do with a review because you didn't like the number of a game that you haven't sunk any time into is silly. Now you could disagree with that review for sure. Absolutely. But to go just like, throw, mud at them, it's ridiculous. It's one opinion out of 100+ that are out there. You could find one that you think is going to gravitate towards you as well. I echo that.
Well, it's funny. So
I think they need to do a better job of like looking at the collective. And you got 30 reviews and a lot of them are good, and then you got 2 bad ones, and then that's all you see all day is people ranking on the bad ones. And like I'm gonna repeat what they just said. Like it's more important these days than ever to find a reviewer that you vibe with, that likes the same things you do, and use that as your guidepost, and then look at the collective, just kind of see what the general consensus is. It's just to attack these people and you haven't even touched the game yet. Like that's kind of crazy.
Or just in general, like I saw one guy that the person that rated it a 5 just turned off their Twitter. They knew exactly what was going to come at them. God bless the person that gave Tears of the Kingdom a 6. Like those reviews are important.
Challenge. If you're somebody who hates durability, you still hate that from the original game, and you're like, oh my god, it's still here.
Right.
And this is just like, and that is their. You said it perfectly. That is their opinion. Travis brought up another point because he and Tassie were going back and forth. I've had both of them on the show, which is always entertaining. They're just going back and forth over scores. And the fact that like now that IGN feels they need to put the word good in front of a 7 so people don't have a heart attack when they see a 7 on something, like it is a good game.
Yeah.
They didn't think it was great or amazing because of, the entire review that they wrote.
Reasons,
and people also don't read the damn review. They just look at a number and have an opinion and don't take all the facts in about it. But it's like Travis does a very good job to try and use the full scale. And I appreciate that. Now it's like they're a big site, so they're not reviewing like 28 indie games on Steam that pop up out of nowhere that have no work to them, and they're going to be a bunch of like 2s and 3s. Who knows? But they are going to get the bigger titles. So that's why, in general, you're going to see a somewhat reasonably higher average. But if a 6 drops and that's an okay game, there's going to be some people who still really like that okay game, but their experience feels it's lacking in a certain number of departments. And that's their job, is to let you know. And one of the most important things I think Travis will ever say is a review should not be based on the cost of a game, the way you acquire the game. It's on, is
How
that
many
game
people worked on it?
Yeah, the size of the studio shouldn't matter. Like, none of that stuff should matter. It is this a fun game to play? Is this a game that that plays well, is enjoyable? That's what matters. That's what people are going to want to know.
The thing about it, though, and I think you guys make good points. The one thing just a couple caveats to play devil's advocate, though. There are a good number of people.
That is your job, isn't it?
Absolutely. You know that about this. When I was on your show, we had a blast with this.
Sorry, I got to call you out a little bit.
That's all right about this. It's what I do. But no, nonetheless, I got to say, but you do have to realize that there are consumers. I think you'll both agree with me here. There are consumers that will base their purchase on a rating. You may not be the number you think is large or small, but there are people that are. The other thing is the way that the world turns nowadays is clicks get you money. So the point of the matter is whatever is going to, what I find ironic in this world, and you're right about this when you're like, who cares about this piece of plastic? But a lot of, I think bias does exist, and it exists in everything, not just consoles or games. Name a subject, we could probably find it linked there too. So you've always going to have
anger drives the algorithm.
Absolutely. So
and that doesn't just apply for gaming. I mean, it applies.
No, I'm talking about
politics,
across the border. It's across
social
everything.
Media. There's some theories out there that social media will cause the demise of democracies across the world, but that's another conversation.
That's a totally different conversation. But I do think that when it comes down to it, I think that a lot of and again, I'm not mentioning any person in particular, but some of these sites do run with a bit of that bias because they know that it's going to generate clicks, it's going to generate money. Well, it's what it puts food on the table.
Yeah. Well, it's like let's get real for a second. Like, we all have inherent biases towards things. Look, I run a PlayStation show.
Right.
Obviously, I prefer my PlayStation exclusives, right? So, like, genuinely, when a PlayStation exclusive is going to come out, chances are I'm going to be pretty high on it because that is my favorite publisher, right? Because they have some of my favorite developers. So, there will be a game like Destruction All-Stars that I'm going to be like, oh, this is not great. But more chances than not, I'm going to play a game like Horizon and God of War, and I'm going to love it, and it'll be on my short list.
Right.
But I don't believe that like a place like IGN goes, all right, so who hates Bethesda RPGs? Let's put that person in the main review.
Yeah. Everybody who does a review for a game absolutely kills themselves for that game and then try and give it the best fair score possible. It's like in talking to Travis and the work that he's put in. I mean, the man put in like 150 hours in Diablo.
Yeah.
He's not just farting around trying to be like, how can I get the site clicks? They're IGN. They actually don't really need to worry about that. They're going to find plenty of them completely on their own. And it's more going to be around usually the game that will drive it. I mean, some of their biggest articles, when they mention those sometimes, are not the ones that you expect.
Mm-hmm.
So they're just going to put, if you're going to have somebody who does poor reviews, it's going to get known and they're not going to get to keep doing it. And that's kind of the thing. Somebody who puts quality time and a fair review, that's just going to stick around. And the people who don't won't.
Bontis, that's well stated. That's my point. That's why I didn't actually say, there's not a name I'm talking about. There's not one person. But remember, everybody kind of lives their life to the beat of a different drum. So where you could say, I know this person doesn't do that. I agree with you. I had Travis on the show. We talked Diablo from like soup to nuts on the show. And in all honesty, he's just not that kind of guy. That's just not how he operates. But there are others that literally do that. And I mean, it's in face value. You could have 1 million people tweet you tomorrow to just show you. It's just, it's what they do. It's how they do their business. By the way, I don't knock anybody's hustle, by the way. If that's what they do, that's fine. But that you
can just try and be better, or just don't pay attention to it.
Or don't pay attention to it.
And that's where, I mean, the whole debate, as I was sitting there watching Travis and Paul go at it over the numbers, like Paul's sitting there saying, it's like, well, if you gave a game a 6, that's going to basically crucify it. Or if you give, any of these lower scores, we just only need to use the top ones. I'm like, then what's the point of the system? Should we just use words? But we need to be better consumers of video games. It's not just like come to the lowest common denominator and play on their level. I'm not going to do that, and I never will. And that's not saying those people don't exist.
Yeah.
But also, it's kind of like, they're not worth the time. Then it's like, if you're going to be this person who makes stuff up and is a giant fanboy about whatever platform you prefer, not worth the time. And
also,
and if you do find an audience, going to be a weird one, and good luck with that. Yeah, have fun.
Also cramming these huge games into like 100-hour games into like a 1 week play period is like that will color your review on its own. You know what I mean? I mean, I tell you, my personal gaming habits, like after 2 or 3 hours, I got to get up, man. I got to do something. I got to switch games.
After an hour.
So
for me.
To play I got hundreds of hours in a week, like that would color my feelings at the end.
Yeah,
for sure.
Travis is a machine. That dude doesn't sleep, I swear. But even for me, getting about 80 hours in 2 weeks,
that's crazy.
And still trying to make sure.
That's wild.
That's a lot for me. Still got a couple of Destiny videos out. I had a funeral I had to deal with in the middle of that, which was unfortunate. And it's like, and I got it. I mean, it was very nicely handled. So I'll just say she's in a better place for my aunt. But that was a lot of hours for me, and I had 2 weeks.
Yeah,
or like 12 days or 13. It was
That's
right
taxing.
About 2 weeks.
That's extremely taxing.
So it's like, and I know it was a lot of my time. Like I would get up, walk the dogs, and my wife and I would get one of the workout, but that was most of it. And as you said, when you really do live in some of these things, but also it depends on the publishers. If the publishers were like, hey, here's the window, can we have 1 more month so all the reviewers get 3 weeks to play this thing? Again, then it comes down to fiscal quarters and so many other decisions that you don't get to be a part of. Yeah. So it's like I got a chance to review Remnant 2 as well. And it was almost the same amount of hours. That game was awesome. But it was like game. That was one that I didn't want to put down, and like every secret and puzzle I was sitting there figuring out are fun. And then this one early on, I was like, uh-oh. And then it was like I wanted to get back and keep playing it. And that's one of the biggest things I can say before I wrap up my time here is what started as a slow burn for me, and I wasn't entirely sure. I'm up to 98 hours in this thing. Yeah. And even though I still do mostly Destiny on my channel, I am going to see the other 2 factions that I didn't quite fully finish out to their end. And then I've heard New Game Plus does even more. So seeing 150 hours on my Starfield playtime is likely, just because when you get that far into it and you kind of see all the options that are there, and that doesn't even include like outposts. I haven't even really done that, and I don't know if I will, but everything else that's there, I want to play it. And that's kind of the reason why when it started low, and I can't say the game is perfect, that's why I gave it an 8. That 8 is one that is going to stick with me for a while. And there are moments that are really cool. There's also moments that are tedious and repetitive. But then you have like a really cool dogfight or a story moment, or just things start really clicking. But as I said in my review, it's a bumpy start. So if you can get over that hump, I had a lot of fun with it. And that's the biggest thing is like I tried to look up some stuff about other games, like other Bethesda games, to get an idea, see how people had reviewed Bethesda games before, just to get an idea. And honestly, after a while, it's just kind of like, I just want to know how I feel about the game. And I think that's when it comes down to it for every one of us on the podcast and everybody out there listening. How do you feel when you play a game? If you're enjoying it, that's fine. Are the things that a reviewer says that maybe the first part's bumpy and you're like, I see there's some potential in there, maybe these couple of things will help, and maybe that gets to you. Or maybe you're on Game Pass, you try it for 5 hours and be like, dude, this is not me. Do that too. You might be one of those people who would give it a 6 or a 5. Right. And just picture yourself in that reviewer's shoes who now is just going to get crucified on Twitter. That's not a great situation, but just know there's probably a game that you didn't like that somebody else loved. We all have different opinions. Sorry, I've talked a lot today.
Abantis, listen, I am so happy to hear Abantis like completely put his chest out there. I love it. Abantis, real quick, this is a fun question. Controller or keyboard and mouse?
I did keyboard and mouse. There's a decent amount of controls in this one. I've heard controller can be a lot. But I also know Cog and Travis, I'm pretty sure, played it on controller. Okay. And I don't think they had much of an issue. I am a PC gamer, so I'm going to lean that way. But yeah, did you play controller?
I'm going to go controller. I mean, I can tell you right now.
I'm playing controller right now. But I'm
keyboard and mouse.
God bless you.
Keyboard and mouse is only for me, for like competitive, like, online shooters, man.
Yeah, if you're doing
for me, it's for first person. If a game's first person, I like keyboard.
See,
otherwise,
I lived a lot in first person.
D, first of all, as far as competitive goes, D's 100% right. It's a much more accurate and faster system. I will say this much, though. If you're someone like me that always uses a controller, I'm actually intrigued to try the keyboard and mouse, because this is a game that I feel like, especially when you're exploring and things like that, you can actually, it's novice enough to where I can start to learn a little bit more of it. Because honestly, I don't even see the enjoyment in keyboard and mouse. to me, it's carpal tunnel waiting to happen. I don't get it.
Yep.
But I mean, it is what it is. I'm a controller guy. I've always been a console player. So for me to even play it on PC is going to be a controller. I do want to say shout out to Ola Mocha. Oh, go ahead, please.
And for me, it's really strange because, I do play on PC, but predominantly play with a controller. And I have an Elite controller, so I can adjust the sensitivity and whatnot. And honestly, tell you, having a controller joined to your hip since you're like 6 years old, you develop a type of twitchiness, a type of skill with it, right?
You do.
So although it's a controller compared to a keyboard and mouse, on the rare times where I do bring it on an online shooter, like competitively, I still smoke a lot of people just because my reaction time. But I will say a keyboard and mouse is key for shooters. But anything else that unless it's like competitive shooter online where I need that extra edge to get the ops. Otherwise, I'm just not using. I'm just using a controller. I just find it just a lot more enjoyable for gaming. So I'm one of those weird PC players, man.
No, I'm right there. I'm gonna be
Mooch.
I'll be using a controller as well. Rap, do you have something to comment on?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm kind of I don't mostly game on PC. I mostly use controller as well. But I found more recently with like Baldur's Gate 3 that it's keyboard mouse is the way to go with that game. I think it's easier just to navigate through the menus and your item menus and skills or I should say attacks, things like that. It's a little more fluid.
Yeah. I actually use both for that one. Just like I like walking around and exploring with a controller because you can walk around like a regular action adventure game. And when it's time to fight, I use the mouse and keyboard.
So here's a super chat that, and I bought this just because you made such a good stand on your case. God Emperor Sofa King, and I'll get to the super chats, but I gotta ask about this. So he's an Xbox fan, right? This is coming from the other side of the coin. God Emperor Sofa King says, so we're really not going to see the absolute bias Dan Stapleton has and say, hey, that's okay. He gave Duke Nukem Forever an 8. But I mean, I think, and I don't even mean to really
I want to ask the question this.
Yeah.
What bias are you talking about for him? Just against Xbox? Is that what people think he's got?
I think that's what he's alluding to, but I don't think Dan Stapleton does have that bias.
I was going to say, I could have just as easily given it a 7. I had some good experiences that kicked it up there for me. But honestly, depending on what experiences I had, maybe I made different choices. Maybe I had a companion who was less fun. I completely understand his review. Like I've been there. Like I had a big
I listened
bug.
to it. Yeah.
And it's like, that's kind of the biggest thing about this game specifically is like, if you can't believe that your mileage is going to vary in a Bethesda game.
Yeah.
And I'm not even a Bethesda gamer, but like when I wrap my head around my 100 hours I've had in this thing, everybody's mileage is going to vary. That's why the 6 to a 10, I can understand the 6 to a 9. The 10 is a little bit of a stretch for me. I can understand somebody saying this is an amazing game.
Yeah.
I can also somebody saying this is an okay game as a 6. I see the range, like having put this much time in. That's why I was like, to call him biased over a 7 on this game, I get where he's coming from, and certain things just didn't mesh. I mean, you can say the encumbrance system is old, the faces for the animations. Like, I honestly just had to let the facial animations go. I ended up reading a lot of subtitles just to read them faster because I was usually just faster than what they were going to say. But I mean, coming from stuff like Last of Us and Red Dead and like Spider-Man, I mean, those are like mocapped animations that, like, when you see those, I had to look. I was playing early and I went to go look at Horizon Zero Dawn, and I'm like, the emotions that like Aloy is showing, I'm like, this is real. And then you come back here and you got a little bit of the empty eyes and stuff like that for a Bethesda base. But the voices gotta be like a million voice lines. I don't even know how many it is. I couldn't tell you, but like the voices that are in there is what delivered it. So then I just latched more onto the voices, and that's kind of the thing. Some people will get over that and some won't. And that's why to me it was like, I understand basically a 6 to a 9. I understand everybody's reason to have that in this game. I do completely.
Yeah.
And then
it just depends on what you're looking for, really. Like if you're most excited to hop in your spaceship and go cruise around the solar system, you might be a little let down than most, you know? Like it just depends on what you're going for.
I never really say this on the show, but I said it earlier. I'll say it one more time. And for God Emperor Sofa King, if you got a minute, honestly, watch the Kind of Funny cast do their. They have like 5 videos. It's the first one they did. It's where they had the entire.
Weston
crew.
gave it a 3 out of 5.
He gave it a 3 out of 5. Paris gave it a 4 out of 5.
4 out of 5.
And Greg and Andy both abstained from a rating yet because they were going into New Game Plus and they wanted to wait.
Yeah.
But if you listen to what they did, it's what Abantis just said. I actually would not have understood clearly what Abantis said if I didn't watch that show, because I watched it go from a 3 to 5 to a 4 out of 5 to legitimately 2 people who understood where the 3s and the 4s were coming from. And they explained it. I definitely would recommend going over and check that out. I like the way that was orchestrated. I never stay tuned that long on Kind of Funny, but they really did a really good job of that. Now here's what
was a great one.
It was very good. I got 3 or 4 super chats to read, and then I do what I call the speed round here while I have you guys. And it's just I want to go through.
Because I'm wrapping up.
I know about this. I know I only have you for a few minutes, and D, I gotta hear your opinion on one of these things. Real quick here, the great I gotta hear it. Olamoka says Ryan does care. He also said 4K 60 is standard for everything. Let's go, referring to the Xbox Series X. He's a classic fanboy moving the goalpost. So Olamoka, we kind of already touched on that. He did tweet that out a while ago as well. You know, that's the thing. When you tweet something, the thing is, people's emotions change, people's feelings change. But Olamoka, I do remember that tweet. Mr. Grimm, there's nothing in Starfield I see that tells me, yeah, okay, I can see why it's locked at 30 frames. Nothing. Please tell me one next-gen feature that made it a requirement to be locked at 30 frames. At least give us 1440 60 like Sony would.
There's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of stuff.
It is
that
a
the CPU's
CPU heavy
handling.
game. I can probably guess.
Without getting technical, this is not a case of, oh my God, the devs didn't optimize the game. This game was ready to be played last year. Microsoft gave them an additional year to polish it. So it is what it is, and the best thing we're going to get is an unlocked mode. And once again, just look at PC. Look at everything that's running on PC. It's hard to get it 60 FPS on PC with.
I was like, I'm not
relatively
locked there
high
without.
hardware.
Yeah, without the help of like FSR and some scaling on my end, I'm not at 60. So to hope that it's going to get there. And I just did an interview with a level designer over the world of like, because we were just talking about PvP maps in Destiny, and it was a guy who developed PvP maps for like Rainbow Six Siege. I learned a lot from that 2-hour interview with that guy. So if you do want to check it out, it's kind of an interesting interview. But it's like the idea of lighting alone. They had like one of the developers there, and he was like, she could work some magic, and if you got to a point where some stuff worked, you just like don't touch it. So it's like there are so many little factors that probably make. I mean, every game that we get, we're probably lucky that it functions at all. To be completely honest, so the fact that it might take like months and months, and then we might get a performance option with some major scaling and stuff, and then you might have less lighting and things here and there. The lighting alone is probably something I could see putting in some heavy work on both sides, CPU and GPU. And it just depends on how much they can push it, depending on the platform they're on. But it's like there's a lot going on under the hood. I would have to guess that between systems and inventory, when you load it up, is pretty damn quick. There's a lot that's sitting there just almost ready that I would imagine is probably why there's more going on than it may look like.
Really well put. I appreciate that. And then the great True Witty says, I believe games are being held back by the Xbox Series S. That's sad. We didn't get a chance to really get into that too much.
Doesn't actually seem like that's an issue.
Yeah, I don't know if that's.
I would say for this game, it's not an issue, because if you look at both the Series S and the Series X, they look relatively the same.
Yeah, a lot of
Minus
people.
the resolution
a lot of
scale,
people.
obviously.
So D, it's funny you say that. I wish we had another hour here to get into it, because that was one of the things I was going to talk about was the fact that it looks very similar. People are thinking the X got held back because it is made for the S. But I mean, that may be a topic for another day.
And again, it just depends on...
I'll say this, because I know I don't really make a lot of appearances here, so I'll say this. I'm not a huge fan of the Series S, and there are some instances where the Series S does hold it back. I think it's really encouraging that Microsoft has looked at least to have loosened their stance, or softened their stance on the parity clause, because Baldur's Gate will be coming out later this year on the Series X and the Series S. And I believe split screen is going to be missing from the Series S, but it's going to be on the Series X. So as long as Microsoft works with the developers in allowing their games to ship without certain features,
Mhm.
I think it'll be fine. We won't see that situation. I think if Microsoft continues with the parity clause, then yes, it's going to be an instance where the Series S holds back the Series X. It's all about the memory, and I don't think that some of these developers can't get it to run on the system. Uh, in some instances, they may need to drop some of those features altogether, but
Mhm.
in a lot of cases, they just need more time. And with that parity clause, it's creating delays because if it's not running on the S, it can't run on the X. It can't be released for the X. So
Mhm.
yeah, they just need to get rid of that.
All right, no, good answer there. I appreciate that. The great Eric J. Eric was going to join us tonight, but Eric couldn't make it. Hopefully, he's here with us next week. Eric says Abantis. This was when Abantis was giving his report on the media and the the grading system. He
My
says
little
Abantis
diatribe, yeah.
is 100% correct when it comes to finding reviewers. Here's a contingency of Xbox gamers that loves keeping them in a victim role versus the victor. They say IGN's irrelevant, yet obsess over them. Shout out to the great Eric Jackson. We call him the voice of reason. Eric, we missed you on the show tonight, buddy. Looking forward to your return on the show, hopefully next week or the week after. And then God Emperor Sofa King, I'll actually answer this one. He says there's other reasons for people to call Dan Stapleton bias. He's literally dressed up as Kratos and has many tweets that were anti-Xbox, just saying. Well, I'll say this, God Emperor Sofa King. You can go ahead and make... I agree that there's bias in the world, okay? You know that. You guys all know that from me from years. But I will say, Dan's one of the guys I don't really think is necessarily high on that. Especially, he doesn't play the games on Twitter. He doesn't get into all those squabbles. There's some people that you would actually be able to say, there it is. It's as clear as day. They do it day in and day out. Dan doesn't really do that on a day-to-day basis. He's just not in that game. It's kind of like where Bonta said, I don't know why you guys are fighting over plastic. That's a Dan. Dan doesn't really do that as much. Now, do you have a couple of instances or tweets? I'm sure. But I really don't think, I think if you go back and really listen to what Dan says, and then you listen to some of the reviews that gave it a 9 or a 10, you will see the differences in how people and how the game affected them differently and how they play the game. It's just how it is. I saw somebody do a pizza review one time. They didn't like the way that one pizza was made. They gave it a low rating. They said, you might actually give this pizza a 9. They gave it a low rating. They didn't like the ingredients that went into it. If you don't like the ingredients that go into a game, you even would give it a lower score. It's just the way it is. So I hear you, Sofa King. I hear you. I know what you're trying to go at, but I don't think Dan's that guy. But nonetheless, I have my speed round right now. D, I'm going to start with you real quick. D, what's your thoughts on the PlayStation Portal?
Oh man, what?
This is a speed round. I think you're doing it wrong.
what a waste!
I do it
I
real
gotta
quick.
say right off the bat, what a waste! Who's this for? We can do this on our cell phones. We can do this on our tablets. I don't understand it. Yes, you get the functionality of the controllers with it. I think it has the haptic feedback, correct?
Yes, it does.
So I guess that might be the selling point. It's not overly expensive. I'll give it that.
Yep.
But at the same time, like, who's this for? Like, I always see the hardcore going out and getting this day one, and I see this dying and falling off a cliff. I pretty much think it's DOA outside of the hardcore.
So D, here's the thing. So I'm glad you asked that question. Who's it for? It is for me, and I'll tell you why. First of all, everyone goes, if it's not a native device in my hand, I don't want it. Well, people are already complaining that the PSVR 2 is $550. The PS5 is $500 or $400 respectively if you could find a digital one. And if this thing was native, it would be $400 or more, and it would still be, as you would say, then it would be DOA, right? No one's going out and spending another $400 to Sony to play the same games or similar games on a mobile device. You are right on the price point. And what it really does come in handy for is for folks that, like, I've adopted the Steam Deck. I like to play the Steam Deck on my couch. 99% of the time, I play Steam Deck on the couch. Do I take it on the road? Occasionally, but I'm not hitting the road that often. And when I am hitting the road on vacation, I can't tell the family, peace out, I'm in the middle of Baldur's Gate. So I got to be out there doing my thing. But when you do have TVs that are being used for family, or you're just trophy hunting or achievement hunting or however it is, and you want to do some side grind missions, and you have an 8-inch screen that actually has comfortable handles on it, and it is only $199, and now I will say this much. I pre-ordered it, but I returned other devices. If this doesn't live up to what Sony says, this thing's going back. The one thing I want to know is the lag-free. They're saying it's lag-free. The link system supposed to be a 1-to-1 pick up and go right from where you left off on the TV there. I could see this thing for $199 being a decent little under-the-tree thing for the holiday.
But at the same time, everything that you described there, you could do it on your Steam Deck. You could do it on your
It
Asus ROG
doesn't
Ally.
play well on there. It does not. I have done it on my iPad. I have an iPad Pro. I've got the newest one, and it's not great. If this is the same as that experience, it's going back.
I'm pretty sure it's going to be the same.
Then
as
it's
that
going back.
experience.
Then it's
what,
going back.
What are they gonna do different? It's gonna be the same experience. And one thing that did annoy me about this device is that it doesn't even have Bluetooth. So they're forcing
That doesn't
you
bother me.
to buy their headphones in order to get the audio. And I think that's like
here's the thing, D. We already had this argument when iPhone took the 3.5 millimeter jack out of their phone, and everybody that's a Samsung fan was like, "How dare you!" And now Samsung took it out. So my point being is this: listen, they want you to buy their Link device. They actually have a 3.5 millimeter jack, so you can use every headset from the late 90s. All the way till yesterday.
But whose headset? We use Bluetooth for these devices.
It was
so
just
if you want to use
it was
Bluetooth headphones, you're forced to buy the
You're
Sony headphones. I
forced.
think that's anti-consumer.
But I don't think it's not anti-consumer. I think what they're trying to.
It is. You're forced to buy their
everybody-
headphones if you want Bluetooth headphones.
Everybody
It is
has a
anti-consumer.
wired device if you don't want to buy theirs. Everybody has
Yeah.
one. But my point, you know that. You look around the room you're in right now, you have 3 headsets with wires hanging off them. My point being is that you can do, I get it. Should they put Bluetooth in there? I say yes. Is it a deal breaker? It's not what people are making it out to be. And I really like the earbuds. I've been waiting for Xbox to do the earbuds. They haven't done an earbud since the 360 era. I missed that bud. That was great.
I think you're an outlier.
Well, I may be. But listen, I got news for you, D. To take my family out to Five Guys, it's over $70. This is $199. I don't mind trying it out. You know? I mean, think of it as 2 bad experiences out at the 7-Eleven or Five Guys. My point is, it's not that
All right,
bad.
we got to get the speed round going
All right,
here.
Adonis, here comes Adonis. I was trying to get Adonis with a quick one here. Hold on one second, Adonis. Adonis really put me on a PS Plus going up in price, Adonis. I know you're a PC guy, so you don't really care. But
I mean, I have a PlayStation, so
are you upset? Do you
I have all of them? That's the point.
But you have everything. That's what and that's good.
Yeah.
That's why you're here. But Adonis, what do you think? PS Plus going up. Is this something
does not seem like the right time to be doing it? I cannot figure out
I agree with you
why. Doesn't seem like a good move in my book. I don't understand it. It seems poorly timed. It's not near a game launch. It's not near a slew of stuff that's been announced or anything.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why they're doing it, because as opposed to you've got, times where it's like, hey, right before something cool comes out, then we're going to crank it up. But I don't think right now their service justifies more than they're asking at this point. Because, I mean, you're not getting your day ones. I don't really care about the PS1 or PS2 games that much. I mean, it just doesn't seem like it makes sense. That's just my opinion on it.
No, I agree. Gamers Gamut, let me ask you real quick. I know that you play on PlayStation. I know that with time, everything goes up, right? I think last time D was on the show, he even talked about this. It was a while back. But even recently, Game Pass prices have gone up. Everything's going to go up. What I don't like about this PS price hike is I think it's too severe, too quick. You can't go up $20 on the essentials, or pardon me. Is it?
Yeah, no, it's egregious. It's egregious. I think so. $10 smells like inflation. 30% increase.
Yeah, what's that?
Smells like greed.
Right. Yeah, that's a problem. I have a big
and that's
problem.
just plus, if they don't come back with the value, then the proposition they need to, unless they start doing more things like they're doing with Sea of Stars, then this is going to be. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of it at all. But who is a fan of paying more money, right? But I just think it's a huge jump. You normally don't see jumps that big. That's just too much. I think they're taking advantage of that. They're the number one in the industry, and they got the games that people want to play. So they're saying, you know what? If you want to play, you're going to pay. And I think they're using that to their advantage right now.
What I think that the gamers, like the hardcore Sony gamers, they need to speak up and be against this and not be complacent. Oh, it's Sony. Like, no. You got to speak up about it. I remember when Xbox was going to do a similar thing with Xbox Live. You remember that? And gamers came out and they were pissed, and they did a 360 on that shit.
Yep.
Oh, swear, my bad. They did a 360 on that, and that was the end of it. So I think Sony gamers, they need to make their voices be heard, because you're right. 30% is egregious.
No, D. So first of all, I will say I completely agree with you. I'm definitely using this platform to say that it's irate. I mean, the numbers is astronomically high. You want to go up $3, $5 for the year, and then you say every 2 years we'll kind of bump it up. We'll kind of ride what the competition's doing. This is it's just too much too quick, and it's unbelievable. Now the question, I've seen a lot of PlayStation channels actually really complaining about it. I don't see anybody too complacent about this move. I mean, to go from $60 to $80 for the standard, it's inexcusable. It's inexcusable. I don't even have a Moochism to say, well, maybe this. There isn't one. There just isn't one.
I'm lowering my plan down to a lower notch. I've had premium the whole time, and I'm definitely dropping mine down.
Premium takes that's
and
the
I don't think they're going to do an
increase.
about face like Xbox. Like Xbox
No,
is
they're
in
not.
a different
They're not.
position.
They're
They
not.
Xbox couldn't afford to take that PR hit. They couldn't afford it.
Yep.
They have ground to make up. PlayStation, they have all the room in the world. So I think they're just going to make people eat it.
The part that
You
really
try to get a refund from Sony? Come on, they don't.
Well,
they like the money. And what I got to say too is like,
Go ahead,
there's not
dude.
even like big releases that have been put into this service. There's like a ton of games. Like it just doesn't make sense. It's very, very disappointing. I'm glad that I kind of stacked up. I did that deal
me
where
too.
you convert everything over, and I stacked up. I have for like 3 years, so I'm good.
Yeah, I'm good till 2025. So the immediate response for me isn't harsh, but I'm still going to stand up and say that I just don't want to pay that extra money. So I completely get that. I think when it comes down to it, the essentials, the base, I like the games they give every month. They give decent to very good games. But nonetheless, I don't think that warrants this an unbelievable price hike. It's just not. So I'll be saying it forever. The only thing is, like D said a moment ago, or Gamut just said, that I'll reinforce. Someone said this on Twitter, and I thought it was, it sucks, but it's true. They said, even if Sony loses people due to this price hike, the price hike itself will still keep them in the plus. You know what I'm saying? So like, let's say 3 million people cancel. They cancel. The fact that there's still 50 something million that are going to be paying the extra $20, they'll make that 3 million up that they lost. It doesn't matter. That's a lot of money.
It's so big. It's so big, it'll cover it.
It'll cover it. So, I mean, that's the sad part. I think that's the part that really pisses me off, because you want to see 3-4 million people drop it to show and prove a point. But if they don't see the dividends drop, I don't know if like D, I don't think they're going to see I don't think Sony's going to react. And they should drop that price. So I'm not sure. Only time will tell. I did want to get you guys on that one. So here's what I did, guys. I was able to mooch.
I got to take off.
I was able to mooch about this the whole time. About this, I was just gonna say about this. Go ahead and do your outro. Great to have you here tonight, buddy. I got you here for a whole 2 hours, which last minute I can't say thank you to you, and tell the missus too. I said thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Yeah, if you guys are just wanting to check out anything I'm doing, it's Ebontis, EBONTIS, Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube. It's where you'll find me.
Appreciate that, Ebontis, and thanks for staying the whole 2 hours. It really means a lot to me, buddy. Great work you do, and I love your channel. Please keep it up.
Appreciate it. Have a good one, everybody.
All right, Ebontis, the great D-Batch. D, we also kept you for over 2 hours. I don't know how D, are you on Eastern time? You are, correct?
Yeah, I'm on Eastern time. You always sucker me in.
That's what I do. It must be my like superpower. I don't know what logo I'd put on my cape, but nonetheless, D.
You know what he told me? He told me it's a 30-minute show. What's going on?
That was quite an embellishment, but I like it. I like where you're going, D. D, always great to have you on the show, buddy. It's so much fun, man. You know what it is? It's just I love your energy. I love how you stick to your guns, and that's what makes a great podcaster, buddy. So let everybody know where they can find you day in and day out on Twitter, YouTube, all the great social media locations.
Yes, you can find me on Twitter at D_batch, on YouTube at DBatch. Maybe 20 minutes after the podcast today, I'm going to do my live stream of Starfield, and we're going to get right into it on the PC and go through the settings and play through the game. I want to say thank you for having me on. I love coming on your show. I like the diversity that you have on your panels, and everyone gets a chance to talk, and and everyone is respectful, and we all have different opinions.
Yes.
And I think that's what gaming is all about. The other day when somebody tweeted out, I'm a PlayStation player, but I love this, that you guys, Xbox guys, are going to have this game. You have something to champion.
That's right.
And I'm actually jealous that I'm not able to play this game. And I think that's how all gamers should be. I think we should acknowledge when a game is good. Like, I'm predominantly an Xbox player, but I still play a PlayStation. And if a PlayStation game is good, it's good. I'm not going to say, oh, because I'm on Xbox, I gotta say this game is terrible, and I'm gonna
Right.
start throwing out all these tweets. I always give you my honest opinion, and if a game is good, it's good, and give credit where credit is due. And at the end of the day, we're all gamers, and we should all be one. We can root for one or the other, but we're all gamers at the end of the day, and just enjoy gaming. So once again, thanks for having me on, and I'll see you guys.
Hey, D, listen, real quick before you leave, I just want to let you know I'll be in the chat for your stream. Try to set some guidelines for me for my 2080 Ti and 8700K that's very dated. If you could work that out for me on settings, I would love to hear what you got to say. So once I'm done with this, I'll be lurking in your chat. I'm looking forward to your show. So thank you, D.
Sounds good.
And the great Gamers Gamut is here as well. Gamut, listen, I know that just so you guys know behind the scenes, this gentleman worked a double shift. And then what's he do? He games and he podcasts for 2.5 hours. Let me tell you something. That is an absolute A-plus player. Gamut, thanks for being here tonight, buddy. I appreciate your input, your take on games. I love your enthusiasm in gaming. Let people know where they can find you. And, of course, I'll be bothering you again in the near future.
Yeah, you bet, Mooch. I appreciate the invite, as always. I always have a great time when I come on here. It's good to do another podcast with D-Batch. Yeah, you can find me on YouTube, Gamers Gamut. And on Twitter, it's at Gamers Gamut YT.
Appreciate that, Gamut. And then I've got DC Gaming. Shout out to DC. DC's been a member of the Mooch Maniac family members for a long time. He says, if you don't want to do the PS Portal, just use the remote play for free on your laptop. Everyone has an option, and it's reasonably priced at $199. DC, as always, very, very well said. I love the way DC says it. He said it better than I did. DC, thank you so much for that. And Ricardo Ortiz, thank you so much for the $5 super chat. The super chat worked this week. It's a miracle. You guys, I want to say again, shout out to Thanos as well. Outstanding. And thank you so much for allowing me. Thane Mitra, pardon me. I took the beginning and the end and I put them together. Thane Mitra allowed me to get that Starfield on Steam. So I appreciate that, buddy. Thank you so much. I will do that. I would love to get a review out for you guys by Monday or Tuesday. Again, it won't be a full game review. The Bontis has 100 hours. I'll be lucky if over the weekend and getting the review done if I can get to 20. But at least you'll hear what I got to say. DC says, I'm going to get one of those these days, bro. Absolutely, buddy. DC, I am all in. I'm all in. You got to get on the show, buddy. Got to find a Friday free. DC, you DM me on Twitter. You're on the show, buddy. You already know that. I'd love to get DC Gaming on the show. So shout out to DC Gaming. That being said, let me go ahead and just say shout out and thanks to the great Mr. Badbit as well. He had to leave early. Not early. He actually left on time. But you guys can find it's at Mr. Badbit, and it's the Trophy Room over on YouTube. Basement Radio Arcade Podcast. He had to leave a little after 9 as well. You guys know he does Wednesdays 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Great to have him on the show as well. He had a lot going on. The great Ebontis, who you guys heard from earlier, and so many more. Guys, outstanding show tonight. I'm going to go do some gaming. I'm going to hang out, go enjoy an adult beverage. Like D said, just game somewhere, do something this weekend, have some fun. Olamoka, thank you. Everybody in the chat, thank you. Just wait, I see Impatient Fire, Ryan Landis, so many great people. DC Gaming, Lord Metroid. Guys, enjoy the night, and we'll see you guys next Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time here on CrossFire. Peace out and good night.